Is that heavy? I think they're pretty heavy. Look at you.
Colleagues ready? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting of the City Council to order. And City Clerk, we want to establish quorum.
Councilmember Daley,
Here.
Councilmember Weinberg,
Here.
Vice Mayor Lang,
Here.
Mayor Meadows.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Weinberg, would you, oh, no, first, before we say the pledge, we have a treat tonight. Troop 61074, represented by the young lady with the American flag, is going to do the colors. Would you like us to stand while you do that? All right.
So everyone please stand. Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Would she like to take a picture up here in front of the seal by the flag?
Yeah.
All
let's
right.
Make sure we get at least
Yeah.
one good picture.
You want to get a picture of you, Anna? So we're gonna do a nice smile, not a silly face. Okay?
Speak for yourself. It's hard. I just want to make a silly face too. There we go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. It's, yeah, all downhill from here. Yeah. It's always a treat when the Girl Scouts show up. So we had a closed session today and also a special closed session on February 3rd, and there are no reportable actions. So, colleagues, does anybody have any changes to the order of the agenda? Not seeing any. So then we will go ahead and take public comments on items not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
We do, Mayor. The speaker is Roberta Phillips.
All right. And that's one card. So no, just okay. So we'll give you 3 minutes, Ms. Phillips.
About a year ago, hi everyone, I came here and put in my bathtub and asked that you have remote meetings, and council turned it down at the time. The good news, and a victory for the people, is that SB 707 passed, and it requires legislative bodies such as yourself to have enhanced two-way virtual / teleconferencing options, updating, some of the rules for transparency. So I just want to acknowledge that because I think it's really important that we encourage people, that it's in maybe Gabe's weekly update, that the people know how to call in and how to participate, because I think that we are stronger. The more people that participate, the better off we are. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips, and good to have you join us. So we're going to move on to the consent calendar. And for clarification, I want to point out that the process is going to be that I ask my colleagues whether anyone wants to pull anything from consent or not. And then we will take public comment on items that are on consent. And then we will go on and move on the consent calendar. If anything is pulled, members of the public can comment on that pulled item after it is pulled. But otherwise, the only public comment period is the one that we're going to have after I ask my colleagues about the consent calendar. So do any of my colleagues have any comments for clarification or any items that they want to pull off of consent? All right. Do we have any? We'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments?
I do not, and I see none from the crowd.
You see every single member of our very large crowd. Thank you. All right. So with that, do we have a motion on the consent? Yes.
I just wanted to say before we go to a motion, how much I appreciate all the work that went into the financial reporting. I mean, I'm a bit geeky this way. I really enjoyed reading it. I spent hours this week reading it and recognized that a lot of work must have gone into that, and wanted to express my appreciation. I expect my colleagues feel the same way, that we're very grateful for the work that went into it. It's really a wonderful report, and thank you very much for putting that together. I also want to give a shout out to our rec department, because I noticed that there was a record number of registrations, almost double the number of people registered. Was one of the cool statistics in there, so a shout out to that too. So that's what I had to say.
Yes.
Thank you. Just following up on that, it's not just the reporting and the work that went into that. I really want to thank staff for all the work that has been put in over the past 3 to 4 years, in particular in really getting our finances in order, which is not to denigrate anything that prior councils and prior staffs have done, but really a lot of effort has gone into putting ourselves in a position where outside auditors are able to do that sort of rigorous work and come up with conclusions that belie, certainly not just the wisdom of the council, but the dedication and ability of staff. So thank you.
And I will point out to all those who are paying attention, which are the 3 there in the room, that we actually have a 1-2 punch. So the ACFR that is in our consent calendar that we're going to get to in just a minute is actually the finalization of the findings of that last fiscal year. And then on our agenda for discussion tonight, we're going to be talking about mid-year adjustments to the current plan. And so it actually paints, I think, a very responsible and hopefully sustainable and good picture of where we stand. So thank you to staff and Director Kim also for all the work involved. All right, so can I have a motion, unless anyone else has comments?
I move that we accept the consent items.
I'll second the motion.
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lang?
Yes.
Mayor Meadows?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to our discussion items. This is the mid-year budget update that I mentioned. In front of us are going to be two resolutions to consider adopting regarding the financial update and budget adjustments. And the second one is approving the revised pay schedules. If anyone needs, there were some corrections that have been made. So I think City Clerk has put the corrected version on the table over there, right, where the speaker cards are.
Correct. I believe it will come up in the discussion and the presentation, but we do have a corrected salary schedule, which was one of the attachments in the back of the room for the public, and it was included in the council QA document that was also posted to the website earlier today.
All right, so thank you, Director Kim. It's up to you.
Alright. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Tonight, I'm here to present our fiscal year 26 mid-year budget updates. There are two recommended actions for council approval. The first item is to approve the use of the fiscal year 25 general fund surplus and the fiscal year 26 mid-year budget adjustment. The second item is to approve the updated salary, salary schedule. Again, regarding the salary schedule, we discovered that an incorrect version was included in the council packet, and the correct version was provided in the council Q&A and available for members of the public to review. I'll start with a high-level overview of the city's financial status and key media highlights. Then we'll review how we are tracking against the adopted budget, followed by a comparison of fiscal year 26 result to fiscal year 25. Next, I'll walk through year-to-date actuals as of December 31st for revenue and expenditures. Then I'll cover the proposed budget adjustments and concluded with the recommended use of the fiscal year 25 general fund surplus. Overall, the city is in a stable financial position at mid-year. Revenue and expenditures are on track. Economically sensitive revenues such as sales tax, UUT, and TOT and development services are performing as forecasted or better. Spending patterns show no mid-year overruns, and the capital adjustments being recommended are targeted and limited. At the mid-year point, overall revenues are tracking well. We've collected about $39.7 million, which is 39% of the total budget. Our largest and most stable revenue source, property tax, is at 31%, which is normal at mid-year since those revenues come in later. For example, we received December portion in January. We're also seeing strong performance in a few areas, including charges for services in development services at 92% and engineering fees in public works at 93%. And I will cover those in more detail in the later slides. At the mid-year point, expenditures are tracking well. We've spent $27.8 million, which is 48% of the fiscal year 26 appropriation. It is important to note that this 48% includes the one-time CalPERS UAL payment of $5 million, which was processed through the general fund in order to allocate pension costs across departments. Excluding this one-time payment, departmental spending is closer to 38%, which is consistent with typical mid-year spending patterns. Overall, departments are stable, spending is tracking as expected, and we are not seeing any material overruns at this point in the fiscal year. And this slide summarizes the mid-year budget to actual comparison. Revenue is at 39% of budget, and expenditures are at 48% or 38% excluding the UAL payment. Public works and development services revenues are exceeding expectations, and expenditures remain on track with no major concerns. And this slide compares our mid-year result to last year. Revenue is up 7%, expenditures look up about 20%, but without the $5 million UAL payment, expenditures are actually down about 7% compared to last year. Development-related revenues are up about 4%, especially charge for services are higher than last year, reflecting continued development application and plan review activity. which includes plan check, energy plan check, over-the-counter review, and other entitlement-related fees. Permit revenue is slightly lower than the last year because fiscal year 25 included a large project that generated unusually high collections. The general fund remains in a strong position with healthy reserves. And this table summarizes fiscal year 26 revenue by source as of December 31st. Development services revenues are performing well, with charges for services and permit revenues remaining ahead of mid-year pacing. Public works revenues are also strong at 74%, driven by strong engineering fees. General government revenues, which includes various taxes, are at 33%, consistent with normal mid-year timing. And this table summarizes fiscal year 26 expenditures as of December 31st at the department level. Public safety is at 54% of budget, primarily due to increased pension contribution related to the safety plan, and a significant portion of UEL payments was allocated to this department. But overall, departments remain stable with no operational overruns identified at mid-year. And this slide shows mid-year capital adjustment requests. The first item is to fund for a feasibility study. The study would evaluate potential realignment of the Homestead, Foothill, and Grand intersection to support a new traffic signal and improve safety for vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. Also, the study will be used to develop conceptual plans for the OBEC 4 grant application. The next item is the downtown circulation study, which will evaluate traffic flow and circulation improvements in the downtown area for future planning and capital decisions. The remaining items are technical adjustments to restore previously approved funding and do not represent new projects or additional funding. The next slide summarizes proposed adjustment related to the PERS Reserve Fund. First step is proposing a $2 million additional discretionary payment to CalPERS. This payment will help reduce the city's unfunded liability and lower long-term interest costs. Second, the proposed $5 million transfer to the general fund reflects a technical adjustment. The expenditure was budgeted in the PERS Reserve Fund, but paid from the general fund in order to allocate the cost to departments. So this transfer is to align the funding source with the source of disbursement. And this slide shows the proposed use of the fiscal year 25 general fund surplus, which totals $8.9 million. The surplus is proposed to be allocated primarily towards capital improvements, with $5.8 million directed to the CIP fund and $2.5 million allocated to facility maintenance fund. And the rest of $600,000 is proposed to remain unassigned. The bottom row shows the projected fiscal year 26 fund balances after these allocations and considering projected revenue and expenditures. Overall, the proposed use of the surplus supports key capital needs while preserving healthy fund balances. And again, this is to reiterate the items that needs the council's approval. 1, approval for the use of the general fund surplus and fiscal year 26 meters adjustment, and 2, approval of the updated salary schedule. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, do any of my colleagues have questions? Go ahead, council member.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your report. I have a couple of questions on fund balances. In particular, I'm interested in the Park Impact Fee Fund, where at the end of the last year, we were, looks like, at about 19.4 million in that fund. My question about those proceeds is, do we have an understanding of which developments contributed to that fund balance, given our obligation to deploy those funds for park assets proximate to where those developments were developed, for lack of a better word?
Councilmember, we certainly can look that up. I will say the bulk of it, or the largest contributor, was the El Camino project that I think was 10 or 11 million dollars. But yeah, we'd have to look.
That
at
was
specific.
5150 El Camino.
Correct.
Yeah, and usually in our budget, we have the CIP projects that correspond to what were park and lieu that need to be allocated. And so, but we do, because we were making findings for use of those. And now that we're just park fees going forward, the park fees collected will go to more of a general park fee fund.
Okay, thank you.
No? Can you clarify that last point you made? I think you're saying when we did our last Nexus study and we sort of rejig. Yes, is that what you're
Yeah,
referring to?
we now just have park impact fees. We no
Okay.
longer have Quimby fees or park in lieu, which were tied to specific projects, specific subdivisions, and then we would make findings for use of those fees outside of that subdivision area. And we would do that at budget time for the certain park fees that were allocated.
So does that apply just forward-looking, or is it also retroactive to fees that were paid prior to that change?
It would, it applies to those that were, if they were park and lieu fees, they should be used for use in that subdivision, or near the subdivision, or if we use them outside of the subdivision area, we would make findings for those.
So what I'm hearing is that the fund balance at the end of FY 2025, the audited fund balance of approximately 19.4 million, is very likely subject to
Tied to CIPs.
yes,
And, yes.
and specific developments and
Yeah.
in need of findings and so forth. Whereas what will accrue from current and future projects will be handled under the new arrangement where it's a general fund.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that's an important clarification. So I think what you also just said is that the balance, the 19 million, is largely, if not completely, the old, because I don't remember when we adopted the impacts, but so 5150 is included in the 19. And so it's like the new ones moving forward and are going to be different. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so I don't see any further questions up here. Do we have public comment? All right, well then we'll bring it back to council for discussion. Again, we have two resolutions to consider adopting, one regarding the budget adjustments and the other regarding the pay schedule. And actually, if you have any comments too. Yes, go ahead, council member.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank staff for the answers to my questions about the $75,000 proposed to be allocated for the Foothill and Homestead interchange. I think, as most of you know, as our region's representative to the VTA Board of Directors, I have been working very, very hard to try to get the Homestead project over the finish line, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not, but I've got some new ideas. City manager, I'll be talking to you about those at our next one-on-one. I'm at most, I'm going to have the privilege of serving on the board for just under another 3 years. But however long I'm on, assuming that our region follows our rules, the next board member from our area is going to be from Mountain View. And I have to believe that they're not going to prioritize the Homestead corridor the way that I have been trying to. I am going to plead with you, please, whatever we're proposing on doing and studying this, don't do anything that might in any way cause a hiccup, delay things, force us to go back for CEQA compliance, because for projects in our area, because we score very low since we are are a high opportunity area. Any kind of a delay is going to be magnified. So help me sort of to help our community to get that over the finish line. Again, I'm pleading with you. Don't do anything in the study or make proposals that's going to let the VTA kick this down the line. Because if that happens, then I think the chances of us seeing the Homestead Corridor project come to fruition are going to be severely diminished. If no one else has any comments, Mayor, I'm ready to make some motions.
Any other comments? Looks like we have. Two motions. And I just want to reiterate again, thanks, because just because you made it look simple, we know none of this was simple. And thank you also, City Manager, for, putting these funds in place over the last several years has really allowed us to accrue funds. The Facilities Fund is going to be very important. Well, they all are, but that one in particular. So this is just so much easier than it was 4 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, all right, motions.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I move that the council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Los Altos approving fiscal year 2025/26 mid-year financial update and budget adjustments.
Second?
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lang?
Yes.
Mayor Meadows?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I move that the City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Los Altos approving an updated fiscal year 2025/26 pay schedule to comply with California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, statutory and regulatory reimbursements for compensation, earnable and publicly available pay schedules.
Second?
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lang?
Yes.
Mayor Meadows?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much. So zipping right along, we're going to move on to item number 4, discuss number of commissioners on commissions, though the item is written a little bit more broadly than that title implies, I think. Let's see. The item says, provide direction on any adjustments to the commissions of the City of Los Altos, and we're certainly going to start off with talking about the numbers of commissioners. I was mayor in 2023, and we went through a revamp of our commissions, and so we're taking the opportunity 2 years later, probably a little less than that. Anyway, about 2 years since we put this in place to see how we think they're working. And do we have a staff report? I see Mr. Carnesecca ready to tell us about it.
Staff does not have a presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions. All the information should be available in the report or the QA.
Okay, do my colleagues have any questions for staff?
Just to comment that I did put in questions in the Q&A that were well answered, so thank you for that.
Okay, so no questions for staff, and any public comment?
No.
No. Okay, so we'll move on to discussion, and this is, again, I printed out the table. What page it was, I don't know, and it moves around, but to look at for each of the commissions that we're looking at tonight, how many membership that we thought they should have 2 years ago or so, what the current membership is, and then the number of meetings that had happened. And so I think what we've seen is that some of the commissions are operating at 5, and we might want to consider whether that's the right number. Others are at 7 and operating at 7, and et cetera. I think we can go through the list. We can look at each commission, or I don't know if my colleagues have any observations they just want to start off the bat with, or go ahead, Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like us actually to maybe start off with probably the easiest decision, and that's the Youth Commission. As a Brown-acted body, the Youth Commission is going to have to start taking public comment remotely beginning in July. Zoom bombing is happening. It happened to Los Altos Hills not long ago. I think most of us know the type of bombing that happened to the Library Commission. I think we cannot risk exposing youth commissioners to that. I mean, it might even make the city liable if the wrong type of material is bombed, like at the senior commission. The structure of the youth commission has actually changed, and I want to give a shout out to the city clerk who is spearheading that. The structure of the commission is really becoming more of an educational opportunity. So given the new structure of the commission, and especially given the risks of forcing that commission to be subjected to a bombing, I think we should remove the youth commission as a Brown acted body and call it the Youth Academy or something like that. So it's no longer subject to the provisions of the Brown Act, and we no longer have to risk them being Zoom bombed.
Well, those are all excellent points, and I want to point out in the staff report that we're also being asked to consider that the Joint Volunteers Awards Committee also not be a Brown Act body. It just gets very complicated and hinders party planning. So both of those points I think we should take into consideration. Vice Mayor, did you have some comments?
I'd just say at a high level, I think if 5 normally, 4 right now, but 5 normally is enough council members to get a variety of viewpoints, it seems like the same logic would apply to commissions. And don't need to throw anybody off or whatever, but with natural attrition, I would support trying to bring them all back to 5. With the commissions that I've attended, I find that by the time we're up to 5 or 6 or whatever, I'm hearing similar sorts of things. I'm not concerned that we would lose out on hearing good opinions, and I think it makes it a little easier to organize the quorum, and especially for us to do the recruiting we need to do to make sure that we have excellent members of the community serving on those.
And I will say that did you want to go, or I'm going to say that we had actually proposed that a number of these commissions be at 5, and I think we were making enough changes that we thought we would minimize some of the changes, but I tend to agree with the Vice Mayor that 5 is probably a good number for most, if not all the commissions. I think senior is, well, we have 2, not counting the JVAC, which is a committee, and represents both cities. We also have library and senior that have representation from both our city and the hills. But library functions well with 5, but senior's supposed to be at 7, though for various reasons it's actually at 5 right now, including one of the 5 who cannot attend. So that's the one commission which does a lot of social type activities that I think could be justified with 7, but I would support 5, certainly for planning, certainly for finance, probably parks, environmental, and complete streets as well. Again, natural attrition. I'll come to you next, council member. And as the Vice Mayor mentioned, we operate at 5 or 4 at the moment, and planning's been operating, well, it's at 6 now, but still, I'm open to reductions. Okay, council member, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just want to point out that both the Senior Commission and the Youth Commission, between the 2 of them, had 3 meetings canceled for quorum issues, and that's a problem that we also solved by not having them be Brown Act bodies. And if you're going to take them down to 5 from 7, also having the ability to conduct a meeting when you don't have a quorum becomes a nice advantage to not being a Brown Act body.
So that's a good point, if because we hadn't thought about considering the senior commission to be a committee, and then everything you said could well fit with that too. So I'm glad for that suggestion. It is a commission right now, yes,
As is the youth commission.
and
As is the youth commission.
yes. So the only one that's not been a commission is the JVAC committee, but they've been operating as a Brown Act body, which I believe is a hindrance to them in many regards. So we've heard a proposal for the youth commission to become a youth academy or a youth committee, and senior could maybe well fit because they do have quorum issues for different reasons.
Yeah, because of the demographics of who comprises those bodies, as well as because they're drawn from both of our communities, as you know. But there's no reason that the youth commission and senior commission couldn't share the same fate and become committees or some other type of body. I would note on the JVAC committee, I think the only thing we have to do there is just remove the voting role for the liaison.
A council member, which is an unusual position to be in anyway.
And I actually refrained from voting at JVAC this past year because it just seemed off.
And as the JVAC representative this year, I'm more than happy to yield that role. And when I was the JVAC representative 2 years ago, I don't think I ever voted. So
I want to be clear for something, since the public is hopefully watching and paying attention, because we are talking about, oh, well, then it's not a Brown Act issue. So I want to be clear about the intention of this, right? We're not trying to hide anything, and I would expect that all of these meetings would continue to happen in public. So our intention here, at least my intention, I see a lot of nodding heads, is that particularly, I know with JVAC, for example, as they get close to the event, they're trying to build consensus about who's going to get the tablecloths, and, oh, we need to change the dessert order and all these sorts of things. And the cumbersome nature of having to agendize those meetings and all that in advance when you're up against that, or with the senior, when they have their excellent senior day, similar sort of logistics things. So I just wanted to be clear about that. I think we're all clear on that, but just to put that on the record, that our intention is that these would continue to be open bodies for the public to see what's going on. We're simply trying to get rid of some of the cumbersome stuff for particularly groups that move quickly to arrange events. At least that's my intention.
That actually makes so much sense, and thank you for City Manager, do you have any so we've put 3 of these together to talk about as non-Brown Act bodies and as commissions or academies, or not commissions, committees or academies or whatever. Do you have input on that?
Mayor, for JVAC, we worked with the chair and had discussed potentially making these changes with the former city manager now in the Hills. So those were done in unison. So if council wanted to move forward, we would bring a red line version of the bylaws next week. We would bring the current and past chair so they could talk about the discussions they had. And then we would need to have the same conversation at the Los Altos Hills Council. For the senior committee or commission moving to committee, I've seen that before. I think that's a very functional model that works well. We would need to discuss that as well with the Hills and get their thoughts and feelings on as we share that commission right now.
And you, the council understands, but I'm not sure if the public, the reason why JVAC years ago became following a Brown Act body, or started following, is it is a entity created by the 2 cities, and a council person serves on the board as a voting member, and that entity receives public monies. And so it's not a legislative body for the Brown Act, but it is a entity or a body, some nonprofits, but an entity that has appointed council members on it that vote and receive city monies. That's what triggers it. So we're going to have to discuss with them, and their bylaws say that each city appoints, and so they need to modify their bylaws, so both sides, so they're not appointed. It could be a volunteer person, but they're not appointed, they don't vote, and so we just need to make sure that both sides don't trigger those requirements for Brown Act. And it's a little nuanced section in the Brown Act.
Right. So you could take this direction and then bring that back after having the conversations. And that's on JVAC. And would the same apply to senior commission then? Because it's a joint commission, though council liaisons have never had a voting role.
So the senior commission, the tie-in with the Hills would be a little bit different, as this is in the city's code, and the council could change it unilaterally if they wanted to. JVAC would require the town to also agree, or for the city to create its own volunteer awards committee.
And the city clerk just mentioned to me, to make sure, why we need to change the bylaws as well as, I think I said it, but the council can't appoint you. You can be on it, but the council can't take an action to ratify, certify, or something like that. And then if we change anything with the youth commission, that will also be a change to the code if they become a youth academy. Because in the code right now, they're a commission.
Okay, so if we, it seems like we might be willing to give direction for you to come back on the three of those with what that looks like to convert them to what we discussed. It sounds like it's different for each of them slightly, but you can do that and bring it back to us for approval. Okay, so that's good. So then now we can go to the commissions. Complete Streets, Environmental, Financial, Historical, Library, Park, and Planning. Actually, there was some Q&A regarding the historical, asking about folding those responsibilities in with Planning Commission. Is that something that we can touch on tonight?
Yes, Mayor, you're able to discuss anything that has to do with the city commissions this evening.
Okay. So let's skip historical, and historical's already at 5, and planning, we can talk about it in a second, but the commissions then that just have the number for us to discuss are Complete Streets, 7. I would support it going to 5. Environmental, 7. I would support going to 5. Finance, 7 going to 5, and right now it's got 5, I believe, right? And library is at 5, and we'd keep it that, and then park potentially go to 5. I don't know how my colleagues feel about those. Again, leaving planning and historical off for the moment because we'll discuss. Yes, Councilmember Weinberg.
So in principle, I think I'm aligned with what you're proposing. My concern is this. There are commissions, I'm thinking of the Environmental Commission in particular. They do their work in subcommittees. And they can only take on 3 tasks because they can only form 3 subcommittees. It's an effective work style for them. If we're taking away two commissioners, that's going to reduce their bandwidth down to taking on just 2 projects. I'm not saying don't do it because of that, but I think we ought to be aware that if we go in that direction, we are limiting bandwidth, especially from a commission that's structured to do everything in subcommittees.
Councilmember Daley, you're the liaison this year, right?
Yeah, I'm
So
liaison to
yes. Environmental. Right.
and to planning. May I comment? The last council member who was not a member of a city commission was King Lear. It has been several decades in which everybody who has ascended to this dais has cut their teeth on a commission. And I think the commissions continue to be a vital pipeline for qualified candidates for council. And as we move to districts, many residents, as well as colleagues here on the dais, when we were deliberating, expressed concern about our ability to continue to attract enough quality candidates to have elections that really vet those candidates. And my concern here is that, if we're solely focused on what the sort of most optimal number is for the commission to function as a body, I think we're overlooking that other role that the commissions provide for our city. And I would therefore probably be inclined to say, okay, in a couple of instances, I'm okay with reducing to 5, but let's not go completely across the board all at once at this juncture. And maybe again, in a couple of years, we come back and look at it much as we are now relative to the look that we took 2 years ago. So that's where I am on this. I'm not dogmatic about the numbers on the commissions, but the more commissioners we have, the more viable candidates we have for city council.
That's not the reason we recruit for commissions, though. We want effective commissions. If they're not effective, they're not going to learn and be educated how to best have a role in government. So I can go either way on that. I could be wrong, I don't believe that either Jan Pepper or Mary Prochnow were on commissions. I could be wrong. But I do want to say a word about, there's a lot of confusion, I think, on the commissions about subcommittees, which we don't have anymore. We have ad hoc subcommittees, but those are largely misunderstood. And then there's something called working pairs, which are really two people who've decided to Brown Act together and try to move something forward. And I actually think that we've had a lot of confusion about that. And we've actually set ourselves up with, if you have one working pair talking to another, then you have a Brown Act violation, because they're just not cognizant of that. So I actually think that if a commission is only effective because they're splitting up into a lot of different ad hoc subcommittees or working pairs, that's a problem, I think. But anyway, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Just a question about that. Because to me, it's not just a question about the style or whatever, but a question, do you think that is reflective of the nature of the work of the Environmental Commission, that there tend to be multiple areas of thrust and attention, so as opposed to, say, like the Planning Commission, where a project comes before you, there's no point in splitting up for that, you as collectively deal with that. It seems like, from what I've seen from the Environmental Commission, the type of work they deal with might prompt this need. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely correct. And a better committee to compare, the commission to compare them to, might be Complete Streets, which I think that does not come up with lots of ideas. They're not tasked with coming up with ideas. They're tasked with looking at things that staff needs them to look at as part of the process. I think Parks is largely the same way. But the Environmental Commission, so take the Dark Skies Ordinance, which they actually did not want to take it up, not because they didn't think it was important, but there were other things they wanted to do. But council specifically said, we want you, the Environmental Commission, to propose to us a Dark Skies Ordinance. That really wasn't something that could be done efficiently by the committee as a whole. They needed to form an ad hoc subcommittee to work with staff, look at what other jurisdictions have done, and they brought it back. They reported to the commission as a whole every meeting, or at least every other meeting. But yes, because of the nature of the projects that they worked on, that's what they needed. And they were not, when I was their liaison, I think it was 2 years ago, they weren't happy about doing it that way, but they felt that word had come down from up high that that's what they had to do. There was a commissioner who was not reappointed that had tried to steer the commission in a different direction that caused some problems. But I think that commission is functioning adequately with 7 members. I think it will still function adequately with 5. They just simply will not be able to do as much. Whereas Park and Complete Streets, I think, would not have that problem.
So I'm going to make an observation, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but the examples are there. So again, council, as you said, council asked the Environmental Commission to look at dark skies. They came back with dark skies and a bird ordinance. That's not what we asked them to do. And then we had to sort that out up here on the dais, and it was messy because it had gone beyond purview. So again, I don't necessarily think that's because they broke up into these working pairs, ad hoc subcommittees, whatever, but I have not seen necessarily that they're focused on the priorities. And again, we'll have our meetings coming up with the commission soon, and we can talk to them about that. But to me, that's not a good example of using that structure. Councilmember.
More to your point, Mayor, they have come forward, or they may be coming forward soon with something that we didn't ask for that's going to potentially involve the Planning Commission and you know, has the potential to divert resources and people's time and the public. And it's really because that commission, no matter what, seems to have a tendency to follow their passions and not the guidance of council. And I understand that because, you know, frankly, what they are passionate about is a life and death thing for the planet. So I get it, but we see this repeatedly over the years.
Okay, so let's see if I can sense where we do agree. And again, is everyone support that those we decide to reduce, we do the natural attrition process, which we've done before and worked okay?
As a point
Oh,
that was, I got in the Q&A there, one of the questions I had was how quickly that attrition would happen. The answer from staff, which checked out with what I saw, was that for all of them, we could get there this year because of the number of terms that are expiring this year, with the exception of Park, because of the way it was rearranged and so forth, that would take a while longer. But just FYI about the attrition.
Okay, so Complete Streets is functioning very well, 7 of 7. Again, they have a very directed workflow coming based on the projects that are coming forward. Do my colleagues have a feeling for that, 7 versus 5?
I honor the work. They enjoy going for walks and listening to the YouTube recordings of the meetings. And I think there's good folks on those commissions. Nevertheless, I think by the time you get to comment number 6 or comment number 7, we're usually not hearing new things by that time. And I think that we would get a good cross-section of points of view with 5.
Okay, council member?
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Councilmember Weinberg?
I agree with the Vice Mayor.
Okay. All right. So we're okay through natural attrition to take Complete Streets to 5. Financial, to me, this is my second year in financial. Again, very directed workflow. I think actually 5 will be a lot easier. It's been hard to get people for the Finance Commission. A little surprising to me, but so I strongly support 5 for that one.
I agree.
Okay, so 5, financial, and they are at 5 now. So, and by the way, for the public's benefit, I know my colleagues know this, but we had changed about a year ago. The commission handbook reflects that commissions, the quorums, and the attendance is based on seated commissioners. So, so it's been functioning, finance has been functioning at 5 for the last several months at least. We're skipping historical to have that. Libraries at 5, proposing to keep it at 5. Park. So Park's at 6 right now. It's a sort of a vibrant new commission. Do we want to take it down to 5 through natural attrition, or do we want to keep it at 7?
Park is one of those commissions where the commissioners do a fair amount of work out in the community. So that's something to consider. So, for example, surveying residents about their experience in the dog park and going to the different dog parks and observing and so forth. And when that work is sort of equitably spread amongst more people and they're all involved, that's great. I've seen it also sort of function in a way where the same 2 or 3 people are doing all the actual hands-on work, and there's 4 commissioners who are sort of free riding. I don't think we can know right now based on the commission makeup, nor do I think we should make these choices based on commission makeup. The choices should be made based on, the structure.
I completely agree.
Not for Park, no. I don't think so.
I'm the new liaison, but I have yet, that next week will be my first meeting.
Okay. I mean, the one thing I thought was that they just have more words than everybody else. Parks,
Words?
art,
Oh.
recreation, and cultural. So it was conceivable to me, that's why I asked about the liaison, was that more points of view might be helpful in dealing with all 4 words.
Now, Mayor,
Yes.
the thing about Park is that it is not a technical commission. Complete Streets, very
Yes.
technical, financial, very technical,
Planning.
planning, technical. Park is a commission, environment, even historical is technical. Park is a commission where someone who does not have a technical background or a desire to become fluent in technical issues can still have a meaningful impact and contribution to the city. So I think I'm okay reducing Park to 5, but because it is more broadly encompassing, I think we ought to at least acknowledge that and have that as part of our consideration for if we're going to lower it. The other thing to keep in mind is that whatever decisions we make today aren't chiseled in stone. We can come back here next year and maybe we'll say, this didn't work out the way we had hoped. But I did want to throw that out there. I think that is a good reason to keep Park at 7, but I would go with the majority if the majority wanted to go to 5.
I'm okay keeping it at 7 and weighing in again a year or 2 or whatever. It's at 6 right now. I don't think we need to do a special recruitment for it. Oh, go ahead, council member.
One more consideration, right? They're going to be handling a lot of public outreach in the next year, right? Because we've got, potential new park that people are talking about and so forth. So the manpower, or human power rather, is more in need in the short term than it might normally be.
The outreach is, city manager, isn't that going to be handled by staff? Or will it be double teamed or triple teamed and the commissioners will be involved as well?
Yeah, so the formal outreach will likely be by staff, but the park commissioners do a really good job of both going to events, but also staffing pop-ups for feedback. So I have not talked with Director Hernandez specifically, but I imagine that's how he intends to use them, similar to the dog park when we had that discussion.
Well, and that's another point, there are a lot of events that we try to get a commissioner or 2 at. So I'm okay with 7 and checking back.
Yeah, particularly because until September of 2027, it's going to be 6, right? So might as well keep it at 7.
Yep. Okay, so Let's see. So that leaves basically environmental, and then we can have the planning/historical commission. I am, environmental's at 6. I am not comfortable with the operations of the ad hoc subcommittees or whatever. But that's not necessarily the right way to cure it, just to take the numbers down. So go ahead, Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd actually like to look to staff. I haven't been that commission's liaison in a couple of years, so I don't know if they're still doing it that way. So maybe we can get confirmation that that's what they're doing. And also, I'm interested from staff's perspective of, will the environmental commission still be able to be as effective as it is now if they were streamlined with 5 members as opposed to 7?
I believe the Environmental Commission has been using working pairs for some of their projects they've been working on. And as far as the opinion on their ability to complete their work, I think it depends on the work plan. So if you take a look at their work plan, you would have an idea as to whether this feels accomplishable by 5 or 7 members, or if you'd like to make it smaller, if it's going to be 5 or something like that.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to propose that we have the meeting with them and see what we hear, because I think that's going to be more illustrative than us hypothesizing on what's going on there. And then we can take that feedback and potentially look at it again or keep it as is. So we're going to keep it as is, have the meeting, and touch on this. Councilmember Weinberg.
I can already tell you what the environmental commission is going to tell you.
No, I'm not going to ask them what they think about being shrunk. We're going to talk about their work plan and how they're getting it accomplished. Or not.
Yeah, we may look at the current work plan and recent work plans and not be able to come to a conclusion because they haven't done what's on their work plan for the last couple of years.
Well, that points you a certain direction as well. But I mean, each of the commissions go through periods, and they can be reformulated and become more effective. So really, we're trying to figure out, how can the commissions be effective? It's can't just be the number of commissioners that determines effectiveness. It has to be, who's on the commissions and what do they understand, what's the work plan, et cetera. But so I think for now we're going to keep environmental as is. We're going to have the conversation with them, and then we may revisit that based on the conversation. After we have our commission conversations, if we want to, we can decide to bring that one back. So so I think the only 2 we have left then are planning commission, which by itself can function very well as 5. But I think my colleagues have proposed bringing historical commission into that, which is a common thing, I believe, in the state. The planning commission often has a historical functionality built in.
Yeah, Mayor, that is a common composition for cities. I think and Anthony may be able to talk about it more in depth. I think the consideration for cities that have a standalone historic commission is we've been under the belief that's a requirement to retain the certified local government status.
You said they believe it's a requirement, or it is a requirement?
Well, so we thought it was a requirement. Anthony was able to find a handful of CLGs that do not have a standalone historic commission, but I don't believe we've heard back from the state.
I called the state again today and have not heard back yet. I have found at least a couple that have a planning commission, and one of which that does not have a standalone historic commission has a planning and historical commission, so it's a joint commission.
I know it's in the Q&A, but for the benefit of the public who may not have seen that document, what benefits has the city of Los Altos gotten by being a certified local government?
The city received a grant in July of 2019. As far as the city records we were able to put together in the last 2 days, That was the only grant that we've received as a benefit.
$38,000.
$30,301.80.
Okay, so $30,000 grant. So we might consider the pros and cons of whether or not we have a standalone history commission, and consider, on one hand, it doesn't appear dispositive that you have, having a history commission is not dispositive of being a certified local government. But on the other hand, if you lose the status of certified local government, it doesn't sound like we're losing much. And I would weigh that against the amount of time, staff time, et cetera, that goes into supporting that commission, and would suggest that it's probably, kind of a wash when you look at the costs associated with the commission.
Vice Mayor, do you have any insights?
Thank you for asking. I would not be in favor of combining them. I think that there are questions raised during recent hearings about making sure that we maintain the training levels required. As you mentioned, they're fairly technical committees in the sense that they're about going through data and coming to findings, a very measured thing. And I, as somebody who went through the Department of the Interior training about how that all works, it's a very specific thing. My guess would be that if it were stirred together with Planning Commission has a serious workload, a lot of things to keep track of in the regular Planning Commission sort of things, and would be likely to let that atrophy. I very specifically, I was chair of the Historical Commission. I very specifically worked with the city manager to bring it down to 5 people and to bring it down to quarterly meetings, because that seemed to better match the workload. And it seems that, considering the care that our community has about historical things, that having a group that meets 4 times a year, assuming there's issues to be done, and only 5 commissioners, is not a terribly strenuous load to make sure that we're giving those things the attention they deserve. So I would not support combining them.
I noticed that in our gallery we have a third of the planning commissioners here, and I saw how excited they suddenly got when the topic came up, even though they're hiding way in the back from the crowd. But last year the planning commission had 20 meetings scheduled, and 8 of them were canceled. So I don't think that workload is an issue here. The question for me is, how will the city best function in terms of issues that have to have an historical component and analysis? I don't think that the city has been well served by the structure that we have in place right now. And I don't mean that in any way as a denigration of the hard work that our planning commissioners have put in. But the last couple of planning commission meetings that I've been at, one of which we had an appeal over, they did not run well. They had issues. And again, it was not because of the commissioners. It was because of other people who were at the commission meeting. And I don't want that to be the driving force of what we do. But the reality is that looking at some of the things that we have coming up, Halsey House, which is going to have an historic component and a planning commission component, almost certainly. I think that the city would be better served if we were to fold the historic commission into the planning commission. Quite frankly, I think that the strength of that commission is such that some of the shenanigans that we saw at the historic commission would not even be attempted, let alone be successful. And I think that of all the historic commissions that I've been at where something controversial was discussed, the joint commission with the planning commission went the most smooth. And I think it was because it was in an environment where people were not able to try to take control of the historic commission. I'm not opposed in the future to having an historic commission standalone once we come up with a better way of doing it. But from what I have seen over the past year, I don't think that the city is well served. And I think that the planning commissioners have both the bandwidth and, frankly, I think they have the ability to be able to encompass the technical knowledge they will need to make historical decisions that right now are within the purview of the Historic Commission. So for those reasons, I think it's in the best interest of the city right now to fold the Historic Commission into the Planning Commission.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to get a diverse range of opinions here. So when I joined the Planning Commission, it was, well, actually, before I joined, it had been a Planning Commission with a subcommittee of architectural site review, and then that was spun off, became Design Review Commission, which is where I first served. And then when I joined Planning Commission, it was Planning and Transportation, and then Transportation was spun off and went to what was BPAC, Bicycle Pedestrian, and became Complete Streets. So there's a lot of iterations, and then now we're talking about planning and historic. I see, and I have been the liaison just for 1 year on Historical Commission, but Planning Commission does hear historical properties. So I'm not, like the vice mayor, well versed in it, but I am conversant in some of the technicalities. So I don't know. I can kind of go either way on this. I mean, if Planning Commission stays standalone, I think 5 is a better number. The question is, if we were rolling the historical part in there, I don't see the skill set as necessarily being the same. Obviously, planning commissioners could learn a lot of the criteria. They hear them in the joint meetings. Maybe for, but I want to give deference to the vice mayor's experience, and maybe for anything that would go to historical commission, that would go to planning commission anyway. It should be a joint meeting, which I think has been done in many of these cases anyway. But this year we have the vice mayor as the liaison on the historical commission, and he's been buffing up so he can really protect those commissioners from some of the averse public interactions. So it looks like you have something you want to add to that before I ramble on.
You sharing insights. So 2 things. One is, I do think that one of the unintended consequences of the infrequent meetings was that the chairs of that had less practice with what it meant to run a meeting. And so I'm in the process of we're agreed we're going to do it. We're just finding a date to meet with the chair, particularly to go over how you don't lose control of the meetings. Because I think one of the things that's difficult for people who come into commission, there was a lot of turnover in that commission too. So there's not a lot of example from that, which is you go into a commission environment and you're used to sort of normal kind of community roundtable discussions, which are not the same as these meetings. These meetings are for a group of people to deliberate, take public comment, but it's not a debate with the public, right? And I think that sometimes that is lost on people who are new to the process. And so my personal expectation is to meet with the current commissioner and speak with her about that and make sure that that's understood. Probably good for all the commissions, but I think that particularly comes up here. I'll also point out that if we were to step away from having a historical commission, we only see the appeals which tend to be about properties, but that's not the only thing the historical commission does. So, for example, one of the things that the commission does is do an annual award to whoever has undertaken notable historical service to the city. Often those are tied with properties, although usually less controversial. One was for a family who lived in the water tower for a year while they rotated and redid their whole house, and it was a way of the community through the commission thanking them for their commitment to preserving that resource. So there's also the Margaret Thompson essay contest that they do in cooperation with the History Museum and so forth. So if we were to move in that direction, one of the things we would need to address is how we don't drop the ball as a city in terms of those other parts of the historical work of that commission.
Okay, good comments. I'll make a few additional comments, which is, as I've observed the Historical Commission over this past year, I have not been the liaison, but I've watched several of the meetings. The commissioners do this, as you said, because they have a passion for the work. Actually, you said that about the Environmental Commission, but the same thing applies to the Historical Commission. And I don't think they were expecting, and I can't blame them, for it to be as controversial and confrontational as some of their meetings have turned out to be. And in fact, when I saw them rotate through the chair just recently, nobody really wanted to be chair, was my impression. And I can't say as I blame them. So I do think we could do some more research on this one. I think if we, and they have the strong liaison skills and mentoring of the vice mayor to make sure that they understand that there are controversial things that they're going to be looking at. And so how does one approach them? How do you avoid being intimidated by members of the public if they're not respecting our civic engagement guidelines or whatever? So so I think this is another one that maybe we could look at, say that, to me, Planning Commission can be 5, Historical standalone is 5. We do the research, and if we were to combine it at some time after feeling like it was the right decision, then that combined entity could be 5 or it could be 7. We could look at it at that time, but I'm willing to give it some more time to do the research and feel that we're making, a decision that will work well for all of us and the commission as well. Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. With those 2 votes, I think that's a direction that we're going to end up going. I would simply say 2 things. One, I am deeply concerned about how things are going to go when Halsey House comes up. And again, that's not to impugn the work and effort of the planning commissioners. That is based upon the actions that I have seen at some of the more the planning commission meetings with some of the more controversial issues. So I hope that whatever we do, there's something that's done to make sure that some of the detrimental things we've seen at historic commission meetings in the past don't happen on Halsey House or any other big issue that's going to come up. And maybe joint meetings is the way to go. Maybe that will solve. I don't know. I'm open to seeing, but I hope that this doesn't just fall off the wayside. The other thing that I wanted to say, and I was going to say just in terms of the planning commission, but it really applies to all our commissions. Is there some way that we can protect staff? The staff liaison at the planning commission in particular, I think, has not been treated well by some members of the public, to the point where I think staff needs to know that we are behind them and we need to take some affirmative steps to address the problem. And I don't know what that would be. Maybe it would be throwing the city manager out in front of us with his sword and shield and contacting people who maybe didn't realize how aggressive they were being, or if there's something else that can happen. But I think we need to acknowledge that there are staff liaisons who are not always being treated well. And when that happens, they need to know that the council has their back.
I'm concerned about the same things that Councilmember Weinberg has noted. I've been a liaison to the History Commission, but I haven't served on it the way the Vice Mayor has, so I defer to his expertise. But I will say that I think some of the other jobs that commission does could be handled fine by a commission that has lots of words in its title, including arts and culture. I will also say that there's a selection bias that goes on when we populate the History Commission. Selection bias on the part of the people who come forward for that commission. They're not suited for the actual duties of the commission. They're more suited for, I think the members of the History Commission that I've seen over the last several years, which didn't start when I came to council. It started when I got on a commission myself 4 years before that. I think they are lovers of history, aficionados. They are typically much more educated about history than the general public. But while they may have a wealth of history to bring to bear to their job, most of them don't have any idea how the city code works, how planning works, how something gets on the historic resources inventory, how you take it off, whether you should take it off. So reluctantly, I am not in agreement with the vice mayor about the value of that commission. I do think that history is hugely important in our community, and I would like to see us do things like have a standalone history commission, but have that be a body that is about, the essay contest or elevating and treasuring the city's history, but we're asking lovers of history to be to execute city policy that they're not well suited for. So we either change the way we recruit, change the way we train, or change the purpose of that body. That's where I am.
No, I mean, I think that's the point of the training is, I think, absolutely correct, right? And perhaps during recruiting as well, right? Is I think the notion that the power of the historical commission really does flow from the zoning power of the city, right? And that if you're going to be a part of doing that, part of the recruiting should be, you're going to need to get familiar with that. I will say, though, that the other part of the training, which is getting familiar with the Department of the Interior stuff and so forth, the notion that the Planning Commission is going to get up to speed on that somehow better than the existing Historical Commission, who has no other training requirements, seems unlikely to me. I also worry that with the things that are coming up, palsy or whatever, that a move to remove the Historical Commission could be read by some member of the public as an attempt by this council to make it easy to railroad a decision that is preordained, which is, I think, not something we would want to do.
Railroading can work many different directions. And
Usually only two, though.
well, that's true, given the tracks. Okay, so I was wavering. I mean, this has been actually a really good discussion. I was thinking that maybe we would put this in the bucket with environmental, but I think it's going to take us a little bit more time, and I am compelled by, let's not make these changes in front of what we have coming in front. But no matter how we do it, and city manager, you can figure out the best way. Our commissions separately and or in joint meetings together have to, and our staff supporting those, have to be in an environment where they're not subjected to abuse. And so whether that involves, notice I didn't read the municipal code tonight, which I did read it the other night, whether that starts off some of those meetings with that, or you can brainstorm ways and we can help. Or if you need us to help, we can do that. But so I think for the moment, we'll keep historical as is. Lot of good points. That's probably going to be the one that we're gonna keep thinking about. I think planning can go down to 5. It's at 6, whatever the. And then if we did do a combination at some point, then we would look at the numbers and adjust them anyway. Is that representing our discussion up here fairly? Okay, so staff, do you have all the direction you need on that item? City attorney, are you gonna?
Financial through attrition will go down to 5. That's what my notes say.
Financial is at 5.
Oh, okay, so it
Anyway,
went
so
through.
complete streets will go down to 5 through attrition.
Yeah,
Environmental, we're gonna talk to them and then come back to that, but right now they're at 6. Financial is at 5, but that will become their codified membership. Historical stays as is, library stays as is. Park, I think we decided to keep at 7 for now. Planning will come down to 5 over time, and you're going to explore senior youth and JVAC on the different issues with that. So I think that covers everything, right? Whew. All right, well, that was a meaty discussion. The next one is sort of long, the norms. I know I didn't change the order of the agenda, but I think we can maybe do the vacancy discussion and then take a break and do the norms after, because I don't want to start the norms now because I think they'll go longer. So,
Second the motion.
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lang?
Yes.
Mayor Meadows?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we're going to jump to the vacancy discussion. After that, we'll take a break and we'll go on to the norms after our break. So, City Clerk, do you want to just summarize where we left it off?
Yes, so at the last meeting of January 27th, the City Council began their discussion on how to fill the council vacancy. And now council, at the end of that discussion, they continued the item for further discussion to tonight's meeting. And with that, you can continue the discussion.
All right, thank you very much. So we each had conversation that coming at it from different angles, but none of us sounded particularly enamored for resource and efficiency reasons, largely about doing an appointment process for such a short-term vacancy. And so the other option available to us is to call an election. I did have one question for staff. I was asked in Q&A, but it wasn't really answered the way I intended the question. So let me rephrase the question, which is the election we would call a special election, is it special by nature of the fact that it is to fill a vacancy, even though it will be an election during the general election? So in other words, we're using the language, and it's even in the norms, which we're going to cover. We keep calling it a special election. Is it always a special election when we're filling a vacancy, no matter during what election we call that election?
Yes, so filling the vacancy is in itself going to be a special election because it was otherwise not going to be vacant. It just so happens that this particular vacancy has an added twist because the expiration for the seat was happening in November, the end of this year anyway. And so this seat would have been up for election regardless at the November 2026 election. The next upcoming election is in November 2026. And so by proxy, our special election is actually during a regular election for the year because November is a regular general election.
Right, but it is correct to call this a special election in any occasion in which you fill a vacancy, whether during a true special election or a general election. That's
Correct,
what I'm
because-
asking.
Correct, because we would be adopting a resolution early calling for an election
Okay.
outside of the regular time period where we would
Got
be
it.
doing that, which would be, a standard time would be in June of an election year. In this case, we would be adopting kind of two different resolutions, one presumably now, calling for an election for November to fill the vacant seat, and then in June, we will be bringing back the standard one, explaining the upcoming election,
Okay.
calling for the
So
consolidated.
it's a special election because of the nature of the resolution that we're using to call for it.
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember, did you have a question, or we've? Yeah, that answered it. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
One question, which is, we talk among ourselves here about all this, but my sympathies with the voters who are going to be confronting something new anyway with the districts. I just want to be sure that if we call a special election, there doesn't end up being three. Like, it would be very confusing to people because actually nobody would see three, because if you don't live in the district, you don't see it at all. So a person in, say, District 2, it would be very confusing if they saw a district election, District 2 election, and another ballot item for a strange special election to fill a seat that evaporates as soon as someone tries to sit in it, right? So I just wanted to be sure that if we call a special election, we're not going to end up with 2 ballot entries in District 2 and 4.
Correct. So the seat that was left vacant was for the citywide seat. However, in November will be our first district elections. And so we are not going to be opening an election for the citywide seat because that seat expired in November. And so there will be no ballot going out to every member of registered voter in Los Altos this year as they would have been in historical elections. It's going to be district-based elections in November.
So I've heard. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't understand. To me, the answer is that we don't fill the vacancy and that we therefore don't call for a special election, and that and then there's nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah. We have 2 options. And so let me take, yeah, go ahead.
Let me finish the question. We are effectively not filling the vacancy, because the law goes on to say that when a special election is simultaneous with the actual election to fill the seat, it's just a regular election. I mean, the law says that. Our norms don't say that. I've read the code. I mean, I could be wrong. I may have misread it, but I think we're making this more complicated than we need to.
City
So just
attorney
double
needs
check
to
all that.
opine on that. We have not been told that that's what it says. That we've been told that the law is silent on the short term.
Yeah, the law is silent on filling it, but what we will be doing is either you're going to fill the vacancy or call a special election, and that's what we're going to do. And the only time with the time frame we have is to call the special election that's going to coincide with the next general election. That's how I've interpreted.
Right. So let me then piggyback on that. Or did you want to, you're still, it's all right. So if we call the special election before March 14th or whatever the date is, we call the special election soon. We have a resolution. And that special election is in November. Then in June, when we were calling the election for the 2 district seats, do we also call for a clarification that there will not be an election? In other words, how do we avoid getting a moot seat on the ballot to confuse everybody, because it will be on everybody's ballots? Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't had a chance to beat this horse yet. So correct me if my understanding is incorrect, but my understanding is this. Assuming the council decides to call for a special election, probably at our next meeting, probably on consent, there will be a resolution calling for a special election. That is semantics, and that's the end of it. There's not going to be anything further that happens.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
In relation to this vacant seat. However, to the mayor's point, I will say, when we bring the regular standard resolution that we would bring calling for the election, the consolidated election with the county in June that we normally would do, just for safe zones, I will reference the previously adopted resolution to fill the vacancy as well, so that it just kind of further explains the process. But either way, it will be for districts in November.
Done with questions. I just wanted to, as a point of order, remind that we should ask if there are public comments.
This was still all questions for staff, so we haven't started. So do we have any other questions for staff before we open it for public comments? Do we have any public comments?
We do not. No.
No. Okay. All right. So back for discussion then. Does anyone have a proposal, or do you want to further beat the special election horse?
I would say that I'll leave the legalities to people who are expert at that. I'm focused on the practicalities. The practicalities, I have no interest at all at spending council time during this year trying to appoint someone to the vacant seat. And so I would be supportive of whatever is the correct procedure devised by our experts to create that, assuming that there's no ballot confusion, right? Because the public won't see this, most of them, except y'all. But I do want to make crystal clear that the ballots are not confusing. Assuming that's true, I want to be clear that we're not appointing someone and just get this off our docket.
I move that we direct staff to prepare a resolution calling for a special election to fill Nisa's seat in November.
Second.
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lang?
Yes.
Mayor Meadows?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. So with that, I think we should just take our break a little bit early. We'll take about 10 minutes and come back and go through the norms. And so we will, I shouldn't say certainly, but nearly certainly get through the entire agenda tonight. And I will say now, just so people can think about it, I think we're not going to delve too deep a toe into the waters of wordsmithing. I think tonight will be probably still more direction, so we get another bite at the apple next time. Because I think from what I saw, I have a number of comments, and so we'll do some of it. We'll do it tonight, and then it'll come back to us for discussion. But we'll take a 10-minute break. So thank you all.
History Commission.
I talked to Kenny about it too, and he's like, he's gonna be out at so.
Okay, we should make our way back to our seats.
No. Well, maybe we should rain more often. Maybe we should chip in and get her cooked with the dry cleaners.
I found the discussions, March 21st, 2024, oh my God. Council strictly defined working pairs as two members that are not subject to the Brown Act and are intended to do heavy lifting of research and drafting to be presented later to the full commission.
That is exactly what I said, Dave. You're not gonna find anything we voted on. You're gonna find something that looks like guidance, and it may be your words, but it won't be ours.
Okay, welcome back, Merry Crew. So we're going to move on to the exciting issue of revising our norms, which we do about once a year. So let me frame this. So we have three documents that were included in the packet. We have the clean version, i.e. the norms as they exist today. We got some suggested edits from staff. Those were fairly minor, I thought, and there would be more that I at least, and I'm sure my colleagues would add to them. And then we had some thorough edits, and then from one of our council members, but I think the rest of us council members maybe brought their notes with them, as did I, to talk about things either broadly, but so what I do want to not do tonight is necessarily do wordsmithing, but to see if we can point out areas, and John Maginot is very good at this. If we say, John, we want something to say, something along these lines, and he comes up with generally magic words that do say things along those lines. So as I alluded to before the break, I think that we're going to sort of throw all the spaghetti at the documents, at the norms, including what has been provided in the packet, and then that will come back to us, because I think we'll probably need to look at it when it's all pulled together. We were going to get a pulled together document, but we didn't get that, but that's okay. I think we can work with it. So now the question is, how do we how do we do this? I'm getting a dry throat. Just wait till we get a little further through this. So I will try to take us through the sections, and I will try to note, though I don't know if I've got it exactly, but maybe Councilmember Weinberg, you might have your screens open, and you can, if I miss something, you can point out where suggestions have been made. I'm going to try to stay away from the smaller, sort of more editorial not typos, but ways, and so we'll go through here. So this is the first. That's a good idea. Anyone have any public comment on the norms? Thank you for pointing that out. No, okay. So I think then we'll go through. I'll start with the section, general section, which I didn't see anything to staff, though there was sort of an editorial comment on 1.2 in one of the versions that's in the packet. But that was a minor typo. Does anyone have anything they want to point out in section 1 general? No, I'm not hearing any takers there. Okay, so then section 2, mayor and vice mayor selection process. So there's been acknowledgement in the draft that has the staff input in it that we're going to districts. And so I think the wording suggested there, and I don't actually have that one up and in front of me. Councilman Weinberg, are you can you follow along so that? Yeah, okay, good.
Mayor, I
Oh.
have all the changes in one document if you'd like me to share.
Oh, you
it.
do have
Yeah.
all the changes in one document? Oh, okay, so can you oh,
Yeah, let's put it up on the screen. Why not?
oh, yeah. All right, so that's up there in case we want to refer to it, but it's an awful lot in there. So I want to see if I can keep us to top level. So in section 2.1, talking about the reorganization of the mayor and election of the mayor, there's acknowledgement of the district process, and there's some wording suggested there. Did my colleagues look at that, and do they have any reaction to or suggestions?
In 2.2?
Yes.
2.1 and 2.2.
I didn't see any changes proposed for 2.1.
Oh, okay, I think I must have highlighted, okay, so you're right. I am suggesting that if we are consistent and support the changes recommended in 2.2, then we should be making a similar change in 2.1 in the middle paragraph. It starts out seating preferences, but that refers to then the member with a higher vote count in their most recent election is considered to have higher seniority. So again, that is an area that needs to be consistent with the wording that we're proposing in 2.2. So basically, yes, you got it. All right. If we're referring to districts in one place, we should be using that consistent language in others. Colleagues, did you have anything then in 2.2? Are you comfortable with the way that they have described the mayor selection process?
But both of them add with council shall determine which shall become mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that anyway. These are norms, and of course, they don't have to be followed. So I don't know that it adds very much other than just say there are different districts, but the districts presumably are well, not presumably, but we know that the districts have roughly the same number of voters. And over time, we'll see whether one district or another has better turnout, but I don't know that the staff proposed that it's necessarily add anything. It just says, well, if it happens, figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the vote count tiebreaker stops working as well because it's quite possible that there will be uncontested districts. Right, and so you may well face a situation where, like when it was at large, that wouldn't happen, right? That you know, there were two people and they would both be voted in, and they would have vote counts that you could use. I mean, to me, the goal of this section is to avoid wasteful time, contention, all the rest of that kind of stuff. And it was nice having the vote count as a simple thing. You just say, well, there it is, and you didn't have to contend about it. When I read this, I thought, well, you could still do that just to keep it simple. But then I realized it's more likely, I think, that we're going to face situations where there's one person with essentially 0 votes because they didn't actually have to go through an election.
Right. Councilmember, were you going to add anything?
Yeah, in addition to those concerns, which I share, I can't stand the vote count thing anyway. I think it's stupid. It was always stupid. It was never fair. It was never equitable. It was never appropriate. There's no difference between any of us once we are elected. I don't care whether you got more votes than anybody else. If you run in a presidential year, I know you do. I know you do. If I had been the one to get the record number of votes, maybe I would care. But here's the point. Some elections occur in a presidential election year. Some occur in an off year. the turnout isn't the same. I don't think that is I don't think there's legitimacy to using that metric to make any decisions whatsoever.
Just to point out
I
that
would
seniority would break that tie.
Yeah.
Right? If you, the vote count only came up for people who had exactly the same amount of seniority. If you're running presidential, non-presidential, it wouldn't apply. That would come first.
That's.
I still don't think. I still don't think it. I
Well,
mean, my
it's gone.
point is that
It's gone. It's gone.
Good.
So you're good with that. I want to add, and I actually wasn't referring to myself, but anyway, that's all right. No, I wasn't. So I was going to say that so we talk about the norms for selecting a mayor and then also for selecting a vice mayor. I thought it was important to say and to acknowledge that the norms may lead you down a path, but the council still has to vote to approve whoever those norms take us down the path. And so to me, it was important to say something along the lines of, none of this is to preclude council from not selecting someone as mayor, even if these guidelines may dictate it. Because you could have somebody be nominated and perhaps they don't get 3 colleagues supporting them.
That's always true.
So I thought potentially an explicit reference to that. I've not seen that done in the time I've been watching, but that is by definition, if your colleagues are voting for you, they have the option to not vote for you.
I'll just point out something when I was thinking about this. I don't necessarily think it's in the norms, but if the situation were to arise, particularly once we're through the transition, it's a bit odd now because we're going through a transition period, but eventually you're in a district rhythm. My personal inclination would be to break ties by looking at which district had most recently been mayor and choose the other one, right? Because I think one of my personal concerns as we go into districts is to avoid, right, is to encourage, put it this way, to encourage, even though people are elected out of districts, to continue to encourage people to think of what's best for all of Los Altos. So for me, if I found myself in that situation, the proposal that I would probably be advancing, people and circumstances depending, would be whichever district had not been mayor most recently, that would be typically the one that I would favor, all other things being equal. But I don't know that that needs to be in the norms, particularly because we're going through a transition time and it just seems like algorithm codes bloat.
I think we should just take all that crap out. I'm not kidding. It comes down to a vote anyway. And right now, the way it's worded, there's a bunch of shalls in there, and they certainly need to go.
I disagree. I would leave it in there.
Yeah, I think we've seen other councils who don't have these norms ask for our norms to propose them because not having them promotes more shenanigans than having them. And you're right, it always comes down to a vote, but I just have watched too many different jurisdictions have their meetings, and it's kind of a mess.
And I think that it was added last decade here because it was a problem in Los Altos.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we favored the wording. I favored, but I don't know if anyone else that we wanted to say, not precluding it does come down to a vote, which is the bottom line. So regardless of how the thought process is. In that same section, it talks about the mayor, and I'm not talking about myself specifically, I'm talking about the office. The mayor may be removed from office, and same with the vice mayor, for a 4/5 affirmative vote. For right now, we're going to be operating with 4. So that means you guys can never get rid of me, which is not necessarily the intent. So you should have a way to do that. And so maybe it is a vote of the rest of the council or something. You don't want to call it 3/4 or,
Just maybe a unanimous vote of the other council members.
The other council members, yeah. I think that's
I think that's the
intent.
spirit of the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I would also remove for cause
Yes.
because cause is not defined.
Yep. Okay. All right, so we agree on that. Same applies to vice mayor. And so I'm just going to keep moving, and you guys, if you see something, then just call halt. So I see 3.3, Jonathan, these may have been, you talk about that we don't in practice and reporting make reports in writing. So I do support the deletion to be consistent with our practice. I'm going to assume everyone agrees unless someone shouts something, so we'll just keep us moving forward. Let's see.
3.4 is minor edits, just to acknowledge that the joint meeting with the council and the CUSD now includes the Fremont Union High School District, and also expressly states that they're Brown acted.
Yes, so I support that as well. So in section 4.1, it says in the first paragraph, responsibility commissions and committees, attendance is required when a commission has an item of interest on the council agenda, so as to be available to answer council questions. We often don't ask questions, sometimes we do, but I just say attendance is recommended, I mean, or encouraged, yeah, something, not necessarily required. 4.3 commission liaisons. I just wanted it explicitly stated. This might be in the commission handbook, but I think it's important and to remind my colleagues as well that council liaisons are not required to attend all commission meetings, but certainly to be available to the chair or staff liaison if there are questions. So, you know, because if we had to attend all the commission meetings, plus all the council meetings, plus all the regional meetings, you know, it's a lot. I know some of us do that most of the time anyway, or most of us do. But I do think there should be an explicit acknowledgement that our attendance is not required at every single commission meeting. I'm not sensing any disagreement there. Okay.
Where's the exact wording? Just if you
I'm adding it. So it would be at the end of the first paragraph when it says in D, assisting the commission in scheduling recommendations to be heard by council. And then I just thought that might be the place where one would say council liaison are not required to attend all meetings, but you know, whatever. I don't know if that's the best place for it, but.
Yeah, no, I agree with the intention, and I just would probably maybe include some words, but so I don't go to every one.
Yes.
I imagine none of us do, but I do make it a point to stay on top of it. I go back and
Yes.
look at the YouTubes
Yes.
or whatever, right?
Right.
Like so you know. But I think it's fine to make it clear that we're not expected to be at every one.
Right. So you got where we're going with that. See, he's so good at this. Yes, okay. I don't have any more on that page that I'm looking at, and I'm not seeing. So I'm going through the pages now, but I do have some notes, and I'll probably compare. So I don't see any on through 6.4. 6.5 is, okay, let's go to yours.
6.2, correspondence. That needs to be clarified so that it refers to correspondence that purports to be from the council. Because we're entitled to send a letter from ourselves reflecting our own opinions and points of view on city letterhead. And I don't have to have the council review it if I say this is my opinion or this is where I stand on this. So can we clarify that so that any correspondence that purports to be official council correspondence must be reviewed by the council?
I'd go slightly further. I agree with the spirit. I'd say that if you're going to do that, you need to explicitly call out that you are not representing council.
Yes.
Right. So that, because you could see how confusion could arise. So I agree with you, right? Like you're a council member, and if you want to write a letter on city letterhead saying what you think, that's fine. But I've dealt with some situations like in this past. If you're silent on the matter, you can lead people to think that somehow you're representing council. So I think when you're not representing something that we voted on or whatever, it is certainly I would do it just as a matter of best practice. I would make sure that I called out to say that I'm representing my own point of view here, not the full council. And I think that is the correct thing to do.
So that makes sense to me, but I'm wondering, on my city email, I have the city logo next to my name. And in every email, I don't say, this is from me personally, I'm not representing everyone else. I mean, occasionally, I might put that in if it's relevant. But am I violating the norm by using the city logo on my city emails?
No, I hope not, because then I'd be too. But I was thinking, I think people have that expectation with email or understanding. I think that if you go to the thing, if you get your heavy bonded paper with the city seal on it and so forth and send it off with your name on it, it could be misconstrued by people. I mean, I'd be fine. I'd be fine with not disclaimer. I'd be fine with just something saying you don't need the whole thing, and care should be taken to make sure that it's clear when you are representing your own views and everybody's views. I don't need to have a disclaimer for it.
Yeah, I think we need language that suggests care should be taken. I do not think we need prescriptive language about a disclaimer that we need to put in our correspondence.
Yeah, I don't want to propose words. I'd be fine with the notion that you have a responsibility to make it clear which situation.
Yeah, we should. The norm should say, council members should make it, should endeavor to make sure their correspondence reflects that it's from them and not from the body or something. Make a good faith effort.
Yeah. Well, Councilmember Weinberg and I have been on when we've gotten, well, I don't know if this is the same example or not, but all right, I'm not going to go there.
I know where you're going with that. I think it's important to note that we're trying to solve 80% of the problem.
Yes.
We're not going to have norms that
Yes.
will address every
Yes.
issue no matter what.
Right.
It's not possible. We wouldn't even want to do that. It would be too complex. But we're setting general guidelines to show what our intent is.
Yes.
Well, the norm as it's written is a violation of the Brown Act because it says you have to send a copy of the letter to every council member. So that would be an unnoticed correspondence with every single council member.
Well, that can be done. I mean, if it were, then, whatever, but, do not reply all. Yeah. All right. I don't know. John, you hear the discussion and you can try to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
Yeah.
point of it, the heart of the matter
Yeah.
is that we each have a responsibility to be making clear when we're speaking on behalf of a decision of the group as opposed to expressing our own opinion. That's the heart of the matter.
Right. If I'm using letterhead to reply to something that none of my colleagues have been, asked to weigh in on, and I would be inclined to say, this is my own. I'm a council member, but this is my own acting in my person. Well, whatever. You get it. Okay. Let's move on. So, anything else? 6.3, 6.4. I've got something on 6.5. So I was pleased to see that we have a process now for proclamations, which were Jonathan looks surprised. So they were wild, wild west when I was mayor last time, and maybe when you were too. And so I think we need to have wording that says that have proclamations and certificates, and the way we describe the process should be consistent with the website, because you've got a nice tidy process there, and this section 6.5 should be reflective of what you and I have talked about over the last week. So city clerk has all the secrets there. Go ahead.
As long as the website says that it's at the discretion of the mayor, I don't want the public to think that there's a process that allows them to get a proclamation if they go through just by going through the process.
No.
The mayor still has discretion.
Well, yeah, it does say that.
I know, but on
Yeah.
the website for the public?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you didn't have that either, or you didn't know there was a process? But anyway, it's a much improved. So
Yeah, I had a process.
you had a process,
Yeah.
but we didn't have.
We never.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I think my process ended up
Good.
probably being more or less what we see on the website.
All right. Excellent. So 6.5 will reflect that. So,
I-
moving forward,
I
yes.
just put a flag on 6.6. It may come up again in light of a comment further along, but or I can begin now if you'd prefer.
Why don't you mention what
Okay,
you're going
so
to point out later?
So
yeah.
what I would like to put wherever it belongs, and I wasn't entirely sure where it belongs, is I want to make it perfectly clear that our norm is that our minutes or all our materials, our packet, everything is distributed electronically. It will be delivered to council members electronically only. That said, I am open if somebody said, look, I'm going to be printing a lot of this stuff because I need to look at the maps or whatever. I wouldn't be terribly averse to somebody being able to submit reasonable expenses for printing. Like, and so I'd also be like, okay, you don't get to do it. I don't know. But my point is that the reimbursement here doesn't contemplate reimbursing somebody for printing on their own. I do 5 pages a month. It's not worth it. But like for those, but the reimbursement is not my main point. My main point is we don't print things. We live in Silicon Valley. You get electronically, and
Right.
assuming that's adopted, it might come.
Our reimbursement policy is specifically limited to travel.
Right. That's sort of the point, right? Is that it's conceivable that other things might come.
Travel and food, city attorney says, without her microphone. Okay. Got it. And I agree, and I have a note for later on about printing as well. But I've always viewed, and I don't know, we get the stipend. I don't really call it a salary, but a stipend. And to me, that, whether that covers printing or gas for all these meetings or whatever, that's what
I'm fine with not reimbursing too. I was just flagging it that because it's not the thing I really care about. What I really care about is not printing.
Yes, and I think that is an item I have in my list that may not come up, but it will, because I will go through my list after we go through this. So that's important. We'll come back to that. So moving on, 6.8.
6.7.
Okay, 6.7.
Right now, it says that we get our training they're offered locally or in the immediate vicinity of the county. I'd like to add in or offered by Cal Cities, because I think that's where the vice mayor and I recently got trained. That was not I did my training in Southern California,
Same.
but just I think I would like to add that in there, just so it's offered by Cal Cities that complies with us with the requirements.
Okay.
And then
just with the thing that it should be, Cal Cities is short. It's the League of California Cities or whatever, but full thing, but agreed.
And then I also proposed adding in a paragraph at the end that the Brown Act will be distributed to all new council members, because I think that's required by law. Jolie, since it's required by law, do we need it? Should we have it there? Do you not like it there? Do you care? Is it right?
It doesn't hurt to put it in there. It is a new requirement, but I know for new council members, I usually give you the Cal Cities Brown Act, the PR, those other booklets. But Melissa and I have been talking about which copy of the Brown Act that we're going to give out. So there's there's a compilation of the Brown Act that somebody's put together, and so we want to use that, but we don't want to infringe on their compilation rights or something. So we're still working on how you print out the Brown Act for everybody.
So I think the question is, can we make a reference to the Brown Act there? And I wonder, given the evolution of the Brown Act, so would it be the Brown Act and its various associated iterations or whatever?
That's how this one copy is right now, but it's going to be static as of 2026.
Okay. So
do we give copies of the Brown Act when people pull papers for elections?
We don't do it when they pull papers for elections. We usually do it when they are elected into the office.
Right, because
However, yeah, I try to go over when people are pulling papers. I try to go over like the various things, but they don't get a full training or anything like that.
That's fine. But
just to give them an idea of what to expect
Right,
with like
and
FPPC,
once it
Brown
becomes
Act.
clear that you're being elected, that you're subject to it
Correct.
at that moment.
Yes.
Okay, so Jonathan, are you comfortable with
Yep.
that something's going to be there? Okay, so 6.8, I don't know if we want to do this, but there's a little 1, there's a 2, and there's a 3 in 6.8. Oh, no, there isn't a 3. I'm proposing a 3. And the 3 would be just a reminder, maybe, but maybe we don't need it. A violation of this policy, this is the use of electronic devices during council meetings. A violation of this policy is subject to the accountability policy or something along those lines. Okay, I got a thumbs up, I got a nod, I got a, okay.
Blank stare.
I was reading 6.
Oh, okay.
Tell me again what you want from me?
You just to nod. No. No, I was just suggesting that a reminder in that section that a violation of this policy is subject to the accountability policy.
We should probably say in violation of this section.
Section,
Yeah,
okay.
is
Right.
could be a
And
accountability.
one of my broader questions that I have on the list is, we don't really reference the accountability. I think there was one reference in here. And so I thought it was particularly appropriate here, but there may be other places, maybe it's in general or whatever. Do we tie accountability, remind people that we have another avenue, another tool in the toolbox? So, okay. I think Jonathan has made some, I'm going to go to first names now, I think, in this exercise. Residents, community, 6.9, it's really the values of our community. I agree with that. You had suggested, do you want to talk about 6.11?
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about 6.11. Social media, I mean, this isn't a fancy new trendy thing. This is, we are long overdue, I think, to have a social media policy. And the law actually did have a temporary one, but that temporary is now permanent through SB 707. So I've referenced the new code section that's in effect. But I think that, we ought to have a norm in black and white that expressly says we understand everyone's going to use social media. This is our council's policy when it comes to social media.
Okay, and you've made a proposal. I think staff can look at it. I don't know if my colleagues have a comment on it. Go ahead.
No,
Councilman.
this is good to have in the norms because we do it in the training. When we train the commissioners, even a thumbs up or a thumbs down can lead to a problem.
I agree with this, with the wording that Jonathan has suggested, by the way, and I like it, but I think we should also note either in 611 or make a 612, we should have a provision about the decorum that we expect from council members, even in their private social media accounts.
My only reservation about the wording you provided there is this is an area in flux, and I could imagine the state law or case law or something messing with it. And so, I wouldn't want our norm to drift out of sync with that. If that's not a problem, then it's not a problem. I'm not the expert on that sort of thing, but I certainly understood the intention and agree with it, right? Is that because I went through the training, and there was a lot of training on this, and the point of it was you can't be using emojis and stuff like that to circumvent the Brown Act, and that is really the heart of what you're getting at here.
I actually did think about that, and I thought it'd be better to be a little bit more clear and expressive, because this was a temporary rule which is now permanent, and it seems really unlikely to me that anything that was written here is ever going to change. I think it may be augmented as social media evolves and it's used in different ways. But I think stating it expressly is more powerful than simply saying in accordance with rules and regulations or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
The other thing that's pertinent to this is when you're using social media on your Gmail account versus your City of Los Altos account. So there's
The training was very clear about this. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
matter, but
See, I was paying attention.
yes, but if you're on your private device and you're speaking about city business, that's what, yeah, so you need
Maybe
to.
it'd be appropriate for you to suggest like adding in a sentence that this norm applies to professional and personal emails or something to that effect.
Okay, so you get it. We're very cognizant of the pitfalls around social media and want some norms. So, and the next section is very important. Well, they're all important. But section 7, council relationship with staff. I don't know if this is where it would be the right place to mention, but I think it's important to state that we operate, we know this, but we should have explicitly in the norms that we operate under the city manager council form of government. And that these rules in this section in particular are going to be defining some of those behaviors and operational rules. So I think that Councilmember Weinberg has added a lot of good text, but a lot of it applies to both our city manager and our city attorney. So I think that the professional conduct, we need to behave, council members need to be professional in their behavior to our only two direct hires, right? So the city manager and the city attorney. So I like what you've added in there, but I think it's more broadly applicable than, yeah.
I would agree with that, and I'll say there is nothing that I have seen in the operation of this city that has made me angrier than members of the council abusing their power. And I have not seen it from anyone who's currently on the council. But there have been instances of council members berating city manager, city attorney, staff, going directly to department heads, around the city manager. It is, aside from being boorish in behavior, it is inappropriate, it is insulting, and frankly, it is disrespectful, not just to staff, but to their colleagues on the council. There is an appropriate way to deal with staff. And we have seen, unfortunately, in the not too distant past, members of this council abuse their positions. So I threw out 7.2 just as one idea. I didn't think that was going to be the sole end of it. I'm happy for other council members or for staff to try to play around with it. I think that Madam Mayor, Sally, our first name's down.
Yes.
I think, Sally, I think you're absolutely right in that it should not be limited just to the city attorney. I'm happy having staff play around with it. I think it's pretty clear that I'm seeing nods around.
Yes.
So I think everyone's on the same page of having norms that say that behavior is not allowed, and that there are teeth that will bite if someone strays from that.
I definitely support that. So I don't know if you've got quite a bit of good background that's added, a new 7.2, but you get where we're going. We want to just tighten it up. The council, city manager, form of government, and all the behaviors and respect and et cetera that should go with that. In which case, then we probably don't have to go through each of those items. Let's see. So that's all on 7 as far as I'm concerned, if we incorporate the gist of what we've been talking about. All right, so moving on, sections and meetings, section 8. Section 8, meetings. So here's where, there's been a lot of changes, and some of the changes are going to be rolling out by July 1st around SB 707. I would defer to the city attorney, and I know you spent a lot of time on this, but does it make sense to refer by reference, or to build in all sort of the new pieces of 707, which might change next year, or, consistent with state law, the Brown Act, and correlating, other city laws around meetings and transparency, or whatever. Because we've got a lot of the law in here, and we don't usually put all of that in the norms, so.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion about that, because, I think we can figure that out. To me, I just want to make sure that it did seem, however we put it, to make it clear that even if people are participating electronically, we have a positive duty to maintain decorum, right? So I would want to explicitly call that out, because we're not just about complying with the law. Of course, we're going to do that, but Zoom bombers.
Right.
No.
And that's important, because that was one of the questions in Q&A, which is, we didn't have the ability, other than time, equal time, but we now have an ability to maintain quorum electronically. So that's important. Go ahead,
We
Councilmember.
need to put that in the policy.
City Attorney, have you thought about, so I do agree that we need to be explicit, particularly that opening it up, as we're required by 707, and as various members of the public and others are very excited about, understandably. We want to make sure that we do highlight all sides of it. Go ahead.
I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to just put a single sentence in there that says, of course, obviously we follow the laws about providing the open communications, but at the same time, there are other laws that we have to consider, most particularly human resources laws that pertain to protecting our staff.
Okay, is that directional enough? Okay, everyone's glazing over.
John, what I meant by that
Yeah.
was, that means we will enforce decorum and protect our staff and the public from content that may be objectionable that comes through Zoom.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, I think the part that's going to be interesting, we don't have to do the whole 707 thing yet, but right, if somebody's misbehaving here, you have the chance to say, cut that out, or bad things are going to happen. Try it a couple of times. You can try recess. You can have the police come and remove them, whatever, right? There's sort of a sense of what the procedure would be. What I think we're going to need to be thoughtful about is, what is the procedure for hitting the goodbye button on the Zoom, right? Because I mean, to be sort of thoughtful about it, because on the one hand, we're thinking of the obvious cases. Somebody comes in, starts spewing hate speech or whatever, right? We're going to need to be thoughtful about procedure, though, because if somebody says, I just don't like the way you're governing the city, and we go, well, that sounds bad to me, right? Like, we're going to need to have some thought about how that works.
You got to be really, really careful
Right.
about content-specific rules. If someone takes over Zoom and puts on pornographic videos, you can cut that. There's no question that that's inappropriate. But if I heard, I think it was in Los Gatos or Saratoga, somebody say, you need to have a really strong tree protection policy, because we have to have strong trees to be able to hold the nooses, and you could see where that's going. That is as offensive as you can get. It's more offensive to me than the porn. But that's protected speech. That's someone who wants us to cut them off so that they could sue the city. And it's, we just can't have anything that allows someone to subjectively draw a line because of offensive conduct beyond that, which the Supreme Court has already said
Right.
you can do something about.
So it's probably not a norm thing as much as a request for training in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've made the points on that. All right. I have a call, on 8.5, special meetings. This is just kind of minor, but it says, written notice of any such meeting must specify the purpose of the meeting and the identities of members making the call. I didn't really know what that meant. Is that participating or calling the special meeting or whatever? Anyway, clarify that wording.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Madam Mayor. So I'd like to go back to 8.2.
Okay.
I do think it's important to give the mayor the discretion to move the meeting. It's very rarely ever going to happen, but what if the building is being fumigated? Now that we have the Zoom room, we can broadcast from other places. If there's a compelling reason that the mayor thinks we need to move the meeting, I think that they should have that discretion.
That's fine. Sounds reasonable. Okay, so that was, you'll find that in the second red line version. So 8.8 is tremendously out of date, the whole thing. So it's maybe it just needs to be talking about how we look at council priorities, but we don't do a retreat, we don't do many days, we don't do, I mean, you can say might include that, but this doesn't describe what we do right now. So,
Well, you know how I feel about text like that. Eliminate it.
yeah.
Well, I agree, but just to give context, it used to be that priorities were set different. Sally, when you and I first came on, these were weekend-long things and these very long kind of like our housing element is done now. These lists of programs and different priorities, and staff would check them. And it essentially was micromanaged. But that's how things happen in the city for a very long time. And when you had new council members coming on board, there was a thought of doing some team building exercises, and we did do some of those, and they weren't bad. But it's not what we're doing anymore. I think that Sally and Peter are right that this could be removed, except for making sure that we still have in there that annually we are going to look at our priorities and our norms. I guess it's in other places.
And the rest would be a discretion of the mayor working with the city manager to figure out the best way to do that. So, okay, good. You had 8.12. Do you want to speak to that?
So the law requires that we have a technology disruption policy, and I would defer to the city attorney whether it makes sense to put in the norms or to have it somewhere else. We're required to have a technology disruption policy somewhere, and it doesn't have to be super long. I think that what I drafted is meets the intent of the law, but whatever the city attorney thinks is a good idea.
Yeah, we can refer to the technology policy. We'll be coming back to you with one, so.
Okay, then we could, if we're going to have a separate one, then we could take out 8.12.
Well,
Unless you think we should have it in there.
it's good here, just so people, so they know to go find it. Or we could, there was a question about the admonition policy that's not referenced here that needs to be referenced. So I don't have a problem with the disruption policy being mentioned because we'll have a separate standalone policy.
Okay. All right. As long as we close all the loops rather than have an open one where we don't end up where we thought we were. Okay, so I personally don't have anything till 10.7, but if you have any other red marks you want to call
No, I mean, there's 9.3 that I suggested. Again, that's what, that's an SB 707 thing. I would defer to the city attorney if she wants to have it somewhere else. I think it's appropriate to have it in the norms, but I would defer to the city attorney.
Okay, so 10.7, the consent calendar, assuming nobody has anything earlier, we had the instance where actually, City Clerk, you said that in the trend, well, why don't you, the current way the agendas were phrased and the norms were phrased wasn't, it somehow got messed up. And so we want to make sure the process is clear, that the public can request items to be removed, but only the council can remove them.
Correct. The public may reach out to a council member and request that an item be pulled. Now, that does not guarantee that it will be pulled, but they should reach out to a council member or council members.
Yes, but it had said this for a while, so go ahead.
I mean, it said
Yeah.
in today's agenda.
Well, this
One
was
of the most
the fixed one.
reasonable and normal ways for the public to ask for an item to be pulled from the consent calendar is for them to simply comment that they want you to pull it when they make comments on items not on the, or comments on the consent calendar itself.
That's too late. Once they're making comments on the consent calendar, items have already been pulled if they're going to be pulled.
So then we should encourage them to do that when comments on items not on the agenda come up. Because the issue of whether or not it's being pulled from
No,
the consent calendar
I
can be
think there's a
interpreted.
simpler way to handle that. Just keep it where Mayor asks, anyone want to pull anything? Let's say the answer was no. Then public comment. Public says we want to pull item number 2. They get a council member to agree with that based on their public comment. We come back to council for the consent calendar, and you can say, based on public comment, I have changed my mind, I want to pull item 2, or whatever. I mean, that's the more natural way to do it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that would sort of assume consensus. That was, I mean, what I'd say is that the rules of order say that you hear the public comments. There's nothing. I'm not sure that it would be appropriate for somebody to say, "Now I want to pull it." Right? I think at that point, the appropriate thing would be that you would make a motion to pull it from the agenda, and if people voted for it. But that's a
Well,
rules of order
people,
thing.
we wouldn't have voted for it. No one was gonna pull. Someone got persuaded by public comment, but we hadn't yet voted on the consent calendar.
I know, but
You're saying-
what I'm saying is that in the same way we voted earlier to change the order of the agenda, rules of order might require a vote at that point to pull it. I don't
Okay.
know, but I don't mean to belabor.
I think this is an 80% rule. Most of the
Yes.
people who are going to want us to pull something will have contacted council members before the meeting. Once in a while, you'll get someone who maybe isn't as active in lobbying council members, and they'll come up with a good point, and at that time, we can say, oh, no one had thought of that. Yeah, maybe we should have a discussion about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. And 10.7 also still the addition of for that specific item, or that maybe you had similar wording. That definitely means for that specific item, not the whole calendar. In 10.8, it's not, we don't do tentative calendars for within the next 12-month period. It's just within, upcoming council meetings is what that looks like to me. 10.9, it actually ties in with 11.11, placing items on a future agenda. And that works most of the time, but sometimes in the past, and 11.11 is actually, let me check, wait a minute, where is that? 11.9, sorry, it's quite a few more pages. Council and staff reports and directions on future agenda items. I'll talk about that when I get there, but we have to be careful and cognizant of not getting into a discussion. So we talk about the numbers required to bring an agenda item forward, but I think it's important to also make sure we don't delve into the discussion. Maybe that's largely the mayor has to do that, and city attorney as well, mayor and city attorney. But let's see, there was one more thing I had about that. Does anyone have a comment on that one? I'm looking for.
If we already have, what was it, 11.7?
11.11.
11.11. If we already have 11.11, do we need to keep 10.9?
Well, maybe there should just be one reference, and I don't know. To me, it might be better in 11.11, because that's really about the end of our agenda item, council and staff reports and direction on future agenda item. But one thing that I think we're sometimes not good about not delving into a little bit of a discussion, but also I think we need to be better about asking about resources trade-offs. Because, it's easy to say, oh yeah, we're interested in this, we're interested in that, but it could impact our priorities, it could impact staff resources. So I don't know how we can tighten up, put future agenda items in one place, probably in 11, because that seems to be, well, I don't know. This is going through the calendar. You can look at it. You see what we're saying. Future agenda items, one place. Any other comments? No. I'm digging myself a hole here.
Just because I think it had been abused in the past, I do think we should keep that sentence, unless an item is deemed an urgency exception or emergency exception as defined in the norms, which is really the Brown Act as well. Council members shall request the placement of items on a future agenda at a public meeting. So it is done publicly, so.
Well, yeah. So are you, so
No,
you
I'm
guys
just-
can work out whether it belongs in both places or how best to handle it. But we always do the future agenda items publicly. Right? Or you're saying, okay, not always, well, we do, but it hasn't always been. Okay.
10:10 when you get there.
Yes, 10:10. Go ahead. Take it away.
So on 10:10, I'm trying to figure out a way to word this, and maybe I'll just say the intention and then count on the
Yes.
craft of our staff. So part of my thinking about this comes from my service on private sector boards. And in a private sector board, you're expected to show up as well prepared as you possibly could be. That does not mean that you don't get to ask questions. New things may occur to you or whatever, but the notion is you don't start doing your homework at the beginning of class. And so maybe just as a prefatory sentence I would suggest here, because it says, council members shall strive to provide questions to city staff in agenda early possible, blah, blah, blah. There's an implication there, well, we're just doing this because it's a courtesy to staff. And of course, it is a courtesy to staff. But I would like to call out something that, as much as possible, council members are expected to do their inquiries and research ahead of time so that they can come to council meetings prepared to deliberate about policymaking, not to start their discovery process about what's covered. I don't want to, people can ask questions. All of us have an obligation if we're confused all of a sudden, ask questions, whatever. But I think it's worth calling out the expectation that as much as possible, you should be doing your work ahead of time, not showing up and going, I have a question, I have a question, I have a question, I have a question. You can imagine such a thing.
Yes. I also had a comment on 10.10 that I think this is where we should reflect our current practice, which is the Q&A. And because that's where a lot of the council questions are asked in advance. So let's be sure we reflect the Q&A. And also we want to make sure that the purpose of Q&A is for council to ask questions and get answers from staff. And it should not include items that we ourselves may find or members of the public may send to us. That's, they can send it to public comment, but it's really a communication between council and staff for questions ahead, having done our homework, that is available for the public to see, also where we had questions like they may have.
Sally?
Yes.
I agree with everything you said. I think that Larry raised a very good point, and I maybe have that as 10, in between 10.9 and 10.10. I do think it's important to keep a norm in there about council questions, because again, I've seen prior members of the council try to embarrass staff or taken up a lot of time by asking routine questions that may have added context, but could have been asked ahead of time in the Q&A and would have saved everyone a lot of time. And I think that the norm should encourage members of the council to add, even if you already know the answer to that, if it's something that you think is foundational and needed for the discussion later on, to encourage that those questions get asked ahead of time, just to make sure that we don't have to waste time at a council meeting. And also it does prime staff to be ready to answer maybe some more complex questions. Or I think that the questions we ask prime staff in how to prepare for a meeting.
I completely am fine with that, right? The questions part is very strong. I'm a big proponent of it. I just wanted to call out, and it could be another section, that's fine too, right? That expectation that you should be coming as prepared as you possibly can be.
Okay. And then also, I don't know if this is the place to address it, but I abused the council questions last year when it came to the dog park. And it was, I think, appropriately pointed out that I had submitted documentation with my questions that was not appropriate. Is this the right place to address that? If we still to shame me, yeah.
You've done a good enough job yourself. That I think
Okay.
I'm gonna say forgiven. I mean, no, I appreciate actually you actually had an early willingness, accountability, and so clearly, thank you.
Were you calling for some language to be added towards that?
Well, I mean, as an offender, I don't know how to feel about that. I am concerned that others might do the same thing. On the other hand, having done it, I don't know how appropriate it is for me to address it.
I mean, to me, there is, I don't know exactly how you'd spell this out, but I think when I'm writing my questions, I try to be thoughtful about not writing in a way that I'm telegraphing my intent.
Yes.
Right. I think that's the important part, right? Like, is this a trade-off between this material or that material is one sort of thing. Another thing is, wouldn't you agree that only an idiot would want this kind of thing? I exaggerate for effect, right? But to me, the point is that I think the spirit of the Brown Act requires that I try to phrase the question as much about information gathering as opposed to sort of side channel persuasion. I don't know if there needs to be language about that, but that's my thought.
Councilmember.
It wasn't the Embarcadero Institute.
Oh. Only the longtime observers know what that one's about. So yeah, in my note to myself, I said again, the purpose of Q&A is to ask for council to ask and get answers from staff, and it should not include council members' own information because we can bring that to bear in our discussions, nor should it be repopulating public comment. I mean, you can come up with whatever, but that's really the essence.
So I just want to because there have been times where I've found some sort of analysis, and my question was, do you think that this analysis is accurate and applicable to our situation?
In the Q&A.
In the
Oh,
Q&A.
that's fair. If you.
Right, and
Yeah.
Right, and
Right.
the reason I don't want to wait till the meeting is because that's clearly a pretty deep question, and I want to give staff enough time to read it, analyze it, and give a good response. So I would want to be able to refer to things like that.
Yes, and we've had a number of those lately. So I mean, to me, that is appropriate.
Yep.
But just having it be added to Q&A for the heck of it is not.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
right.
Yeah.
And we also have residents like Jim Wing who will submit a written comment, and then we'll prepare our Q&A and go, wow, can you please respond to this resident's contentions in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 12, 14, 15, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. It does amazing work for us.
Okay, I think we've belabored that one.
Okay.
So I wanted to take us to, and again, stop me if anyone has anything else, 11.3, appeal procedures. At the appeals last time, we decided and gave in practice that appellants and applicants had a total of up to 10 minutes, and then appellants and applicants both had 5 minutes of rebuttal time. So we made it fair. There was really no good reason why you wouldn't allow equal time. So my proposal would be to incorporate that, however best appropriate, into the appeal procedures.
So applicants on the 5 minutes as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we did last meeting for both of the appeals. So 11.5, I think, Jonathan, you're suggesting to take out because we don't usually time staff reports, so they have gotten much more concise, but,
Well, I mean, maybe staff needs 12 minutes to give us the information
Yes,
that we need.
right.
I mean, it seems arbitrary to say 10 minutes. That being said, Mr. City Manager, if staff are able to give concise presentations, I think that's A-okay from us.
Right, okay. So then I am going to take us to 11.6B, seating time. So the way we have it is more manageable than it has been in the past. One person may cede time to one other person up to a total of 5 minutes. But I'm going to ask my colleagues, do we want to allow seating time anyway? In some senses, it's actually limiting public comment because it's allowing people to let somebody else do it for them, and then we're hearing less voices. But so I just wanted to get your opinion. Seating time is clunky at best.
I'm curious, Melissa, how cumbersome is it for you?
That's a very difficult question to answer diplomatically. So it's cumbersome when we have a room full of people and I have cards coming at me from every angle and people are going, I'm ceding time to this person, I'm ceding time, because then I'm having to jot down notes and keep track of it. And that's usually when we get the seating time, is when we have the really controversial item that brings out all the people. And so, yeah, that part is pretty hard to juggle all of that and then keep track of who's ceded time to who and when and how much time they get and then have them yell out, "Oh, I'm ceding time too." And then
how would you handle seating time once we're having
We're
Zoom
going
meetings?
through, yeah.
Oh, once we have Zoom meetings, I don't see how we could cede time remotely, only
yes,
because
yeah.
people raise their hands virtually and they don't have the opportunity to speak beforehand to say they want to cede time.
Yeah. So given those complexities, I would be okay eliminating seating time. And since we are going to be allowing remote participation, that means there's going to be more people who are participating. We'll be hearing more voices. But it seems like not necessarily unmanageable, but a very burdensome task on the city clerk, especially at a crowded meeting when she's going to be working her hardest.
Councilmember.
So we handled seating time on Zoom during COVID and it was fine. But I agree that now that we are going to be forced to take public comment over Zoom, that certainly complicates things, particularly with the provisions of 707 that require equity between online and in-person commentary. That's where I think we would run into the trouble is managing the equitable opportunity for both populations. Because during COVID, they were all online, so it was equitable within that domain, but not between the online versus in-person domain. So I do think we should eliminate seating time. I have yet to see it actually result in a compelling argument that couldn't have been made in less time by the constituent individuals.
Well, I don't remember that we did seating time over Zoom during COVID. I don't think we did. No, I don't think we did. Did we?
I was not on council during
No.
COVID, but I was on the Parks Commission, and we absolutely did it on Parks Commission.
I think we did it at council too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It came up during our wireless ordinance when
When-
we had some out-of-towners.
Well, and also in the dust up between Keenan and Lynette, there was a ton of seating time on Zoom.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
If I might, here's something I'd observe. I would like to get rid of it. I would like to get rid of seating time. Here's something that I've observed about it, is that it does come up, room full of people, it's the contentious times, right? And what I'm concerned about, what I've observed, is that oftentimes it's the with all due respect to our favorite public members here, it's the insiders who know inside baseball, who know this shenanigan. And I think it comes across as unfair when people are coming in, sometimes for their first city council meeting ever, to advocate, and they see some other group playing this game. They're wait, like tag team wrestling is allowed? Like what the heck is that, right? Like, and they don't know the rule. They don't know how to organize it. By that time, the last thing we want is them gabbing about, can we do that too? Right? We tell them to be quiet, right? I think it's too inside baseball. It's you remember the public, say your piece. I'm prepared to listen, even if you're not the most articulate speaker, because you're new to this, and that's fine. I do not like ceding time. I'd like to get rid of it.
Okay, sounds like council wants to get rid of that, so we will do that.
I have another comment to
go
make
ahead.
about 11.6B. I think you should eliminate 1, 2, prior to 3 minutes. It should be up to 3 minutes at the discretion of the mayor with no floor. Because I did 30 seconds on more than one occasion.
Okay, I'm fine with that. That makes sense. So this applies to 11C, but some of the others. I noticed that there were some changes. Instead of request to speak cards, we're changing over to speaker card terminology. So I would just ask that we be consistent, that all those request to speaks that weren't indicated should also be changed.
Sally, can I say one
Yes.
more thing on this issue?
Yes.
I'm just going to throw this out there for the council's consideration. The way the VTA runs its meetings, public comment is taken at the beginning of the meeting for up to 30 minutes. And then there's time for additional public comment at the very end of the meeting if there's still more people who want to give public comment. I think Palo Alto does something similar, but I'm not positive. And I'm kind of two minds of doing it, but the advantage to doing that is if there are a lot of people who come in, especially on something that's not on the agenda, but want to be heard on an issue that matters, they shouldn't be silenced. But I think there is a concern about 50 people coming in and we have a heavy agenda and it's already 9:30, 10 o'clock. We're starting to get tired when we get to our agendized items. So I don't know how the rest of you feel about that, but I would be okay in structuring it so that we have a limited time of public comment on items not on the agenda and then go back to it.
My understanding is our mayor's always had the discretion to be able to do that. And we've discussed it and considered it when we anticipated, an unruly meeting with more public comment than we might have the ability to get to. It didn't come up, but that discretion was always available.
So I'd like to see it in the norms then as cover, but even if it is at the discretion of the mayor, we run a risk of someone saying, oh, you didn't like the content of my speech, so therefore you didn't treat me like everyone else. You forced me to go to the back of the bus. I had to go speak at the end. If there's an actual policy that says we're going to give you umpteen minutes for public comment, then it goes to the end. That's a structural rule.
Yeah, that's why they take 30 minutes public comment or 40 minutes, up to 40 minutes public comment, and then the remainder goes to the end. So it's not everybody talking about fluorinated water or something, and you're making them move to the end of the meeting.
I'm not that keen on that. I mean, there's a couple occasions maybe we might get that volume, but it doesn't tend to be the norm. So maybe because I haven't seen it in action. I mean, I've watched a council meeting online, a different jurisdiction, but I'm not sure that I'm that keen on it. And we're already going to be switching to managing Zoom comments and all this other stuff. So I'd rather not introduce too many structural changes right now when we go back by July 1 to Zoom. But that's just I guess I'm the mayor. I could ignore it because it'd be my discretion. But
I'd be hesitant just because I'm afraid if you put a number down, you invite bad actors from going, okay, that's our challenge. We got to get this up to 30 minutes. Right? Like,
Okay, so I think.
And how come Batman never visits it?
Yeah, so I think we're kind of ambivalent on that one, so I'm going to move us forward. So the tie votes, which is 11.7. So we talked about last time, and we made our decision to call the special election and run with a vacancy. So we talked about the ramifications to having 4, not 5, which technically any council can have an even number if there's an absence anyway. So is there anything that needs to be added to this tie vote section? Or is it okay as is that may enable us to be more aware of whether, not getting stuck on an item that we don't want to? Go ahead, Councilmember.
So under Rosenberg and Roberts, obviously, you can ask the moving party to break up the motion, or you can ask the mayor to do that. But any other member at the dais can just offer a substitute motion, which has to be considered first before the original motion anyway.
Right.
So you could effectively do that breaking up of the motion just by doing a substitute motion. Might add one sentence there about other members offering a substitute motion to do the same thing.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if there were, and I had thought about that, but I don't recall that I saw, are substitute motions mentioned in this? I think, they're in Rosenberg, but not in here. So I do think that's a good point. Whether you add it as tie votes or you can add substitute motion, I think it's worth saying that, putting it in there to address whether there's an absence or, rather than getting a tie vote where you end up with a result you didn't necessarily intend or want to get. So
I would get rid of the precatory language when all council members are present. A tie vote, it's a lost motion, or it's a deny of an appeal. Because you could have a tie vote without all council members present.
yes.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
could have a
so-
tie vote with 3 council members present and 1 abstention.
Right. Okay, so you're just saying delete when all council members are present. Yeah, because it just applies. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I would, one other note about the language, if I may, Mayor. In a tie vote, the motion simply fails to carry. I mean, you don't need to say much more than that.
Well, I think it's okay to talk about a motion as opposed to an appeal. They are a little bit different. But I
Yes.
I trust
Fair,
staff to figure it out.
fair. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Which brings up, and I didn't see it, though I thought we used to say it somewhere, the language about abstentions. Abstentions are really intended for when you're missing information, and we do talk about someone potentially proposing to continue an item because they need more information. But I would propose that we talk, there has to be something in here about it. When
Yeah, I'm glad you
abstain.
brought that up. That was on my notes here to talk
Okay.
about. When you're elected to the council, there's a bare minimum that you're expected to read the packet and prepare. You're expected to show up, and you're expected to vote. Yes or no? There should be. I think that it would be appropriate for the norms to say if you abstain, you have to explain why you're abstaining. Now, certainly, if you have to recuse, that's justification to do it. If once in a while I said I abstain because I don't feel I have the information I need, I would need questions A, B, and C to answer. That's an explanation of why I'm doing it. But we've seen council members not wanting to take a position on a hard topic, and that shouldn't be allowed. I think that is a disservice to the voters.
You can recommend it. You can't require that anybody explain their vote.
But I think it's worthwhile making it a norm. We're expressing the values of the council.
I mean, I think it's fine to say something along the lines of your prefatory statement, right? Which is the expectation is that you will gather this information and vote yes or no, and that abstention should be used rarely and only in exceptional circumstances or whatever. That's fine, right? Like that's true, right? But the notion that you cannot abstain without explaining why you did is.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and I get a little animated when it comes to abstention sometimes.
Yeah, there is a right to be able to abstain, but we can preface it by saying you're expected to come and vote, and I think we could even say you should explain it, but I know you have a right to abstain. So,
Yeah, so anyway, we're looking for some wording around there that gets to a norm.
No
about-
chickening out.
Right.
The best is when somebody actually fights to get something on the agenda and then abstains. I love that.
Okay, so let's see. I don't have anything till 11.11, but I imagine that maybe, Jonathan, you might have
11.8 on request for reconsideration. I think
Mhm.
the rule says you need 2 additional council members. That'd be a Brown Act violation. So I think it ought to just be 1 additional council member. I'm looking at 11.8 A1.
Oh, you're right. So if it doesn't happen on the dais, then that would be a Brown Act
Right.
violation. Yes.
So if I voted with the majority and somebody points out to me that there's something we didn't realize, I can't contact 2 council members and say, hey, I just realized there's this fact. I can only contact 1 person to see if they'll support reconsideration.
I'll look at that, yep, because the request needs to be supported by a majority, and that's, it depends on if it's made at the meeting or after the meeting, so I'll look at that. But under the rules, it needs to be supported by a majority.
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, I think you're thinking about, Brown acting with somebody to bring it back for consideration, and what the paragraph actually pertains to is what is required for the council to agree to reconsider something.
Well, the paragraph says the request can be made at the same meeting or
Yeah.
144 hours in advance of the next regular meeting. I mean, there may be an important fact, something has changed, or something just wasn't, I mean, there could be a really good reason to reconsider it. And once that's brought to one of our attention, you can't talk to more than 1 other council member. So you'll never get a majority to agree to reconsider.
Outside of a council meeting, yes.
Because
Okay.
but if it has to be 144 hours in advance of the next meeting, so I can't talk about it at the next meeting because that's less than 144 hours before.
So, city attorney, help us out in a minute here. There's 2 separate things, right? One is getting council to consider reconsideration, and council should vote to reconsider, and then vote on the item that they're reconsidering, right? Separately, getting council to put something on the agenda. By the way, if it's something we've already voted on, it's not going to need another staff report. Only takes 2 people. So I think you're there already with what you want, right?
But that's not what the rule says.
I know, but what I'm getting at is how do we word it so that we can take advantage of the fact that it only takes 2 people to put something on the agenda that doesn't require a staff report. It will
No,
take.
you're totally right, and I'm happy to let staff work on it. I just
Yeah.
wanted to point this out that I think there is an inconsistency there.
Yeah, maybe we need 2 paragraphs instead
I'm
of 1
afraid
or
Julie
something.
doesn't have enough stuff to do.
No, we tweak this all the time. The problem with, in even Rosenberg's rules, when they first came out, said it could be at the very next meeting. But if it's brought up at the very next meeting, it can be a Brown Act violation as well. And maybe the member of the public or someone that could be affected by it isn't there. So anyway, so it needs to be made at the meeting or as soon as possible thereafter, and then you have to get it on. It's very clunky. It can happen at the meeting, it can happen at the very next meeting, but then to give everybody fair hearing, then it has to be set for another hearing. So sometimes this takes 3 meetings.
Sure, but there, I mean, suppose the council adopts a resolution that says all of the cows that we are going to use will be green. And then someone the next day says, hey, they've outlawed that. You can't have green cows anymore. All cows have to be white or black. I mean, that's new information that I wasn't aware of. And I would want us to take care of that and revisit it as quickly as possible. And I can call Larry up and say, hey, we can't do the green cow thing. But I can't call Larry and Pete up.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the safeguard is that so long as both people are The majority, they voted for it, right? Because that prevents a onerous minority from yanking it back and yanking it back.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the green cows will help me.
It's only come up one time with regard to the tree protection ordinance in the years that I've been paying attention. So
Yeah, no, I agree, and I don't think it's going to be used again anytime soon. But as I was reading through it,
Yeah.
it didn't seem workable to me.
Great. Okay. I think we've given direction. So I would, so 11.11, which I'm going to take us to there unless someone has something before then. We've already really talked about, that's the future agenda item and 10.9. So you've already got instruction, but that's the two places that it shows up. So maybe it stays, whatever you guys figure it out.
So 11.9B limits council members' time to just 3 minutes. I think we ought to take that out because we often
Yes.
don't abide by that, and I think there are times where we simply shouldn't because it's a complicated issue.
Right, okay. Yeah, that would be hard. Okay. So looking at, 11.12, conflict of interest. This is more of an editorial comment. It says the council member is expected to follow the direction of the city attorney when you're advising regarding conflict of interest. And I just wanted to say, as our commissioners, which, I know it says in the commission handbook, but we need to remind some of them of this. And then it goes on to say the council member may abstain from participating until the FPPC, this is talking about it, you request an FPPC meeting. It's not may abstain, it should be will or must. You can't request an opinion and keep voting until they
Actually,
opine.
I think you can. You do it at your peril.
You do it
But
at-
if someone is elected, I think they have an absolute right to participate in everything the council does. And the conflict of interest laws, it's your choice whether to abide by them. You could take the position that I think that the FPPC has an incorrect interpretation. This is important. I want to vote on it. But as absurd a position as I agree with you it is, I don't think that we can have a norm that forbids a council member from participating.
Particularly from what I understand, these FPPC questions can take a very long time to get an answer.
They can. I mean, you get an answer until there's a 24-hour letter, which I've gotten before, but that's always going to be ultra conservative.
Yeah, and then there's the 20-day one. But I know you can vote to continue the item when you're still waiting. So that's not a conflict to vote to continue it until you hear from the FPPC.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like everyone and city attorney feel that this is okay, despite my logic,
no,
but illegal.
Not that it's okay.
No. Okay. But it's as the law is currently written. Okay. All right.
So you wrote this thing in 1113 about the minutes will identify any member who participated remotely, blah, blah, blah. It just gave rise to a different thing, just anticipating the Zoom thing. One of the things I find very helpful is when people are speaking here live, they give you a speaker card and then the minutes show their names as much as they care to give them, right? Sometimes it's just a first name or nothing. I sure hope that there's a mechanism like that for Zoom.
So, actually, unfortunately, we can't require anybody give us a name, but typically, when it comes to Zoom, it's the name that they have typed in when they enter the room. And so if it looks offensive or something, I would probably address it as
No,
next
but
speaker,
we-
and then they get a icon that they were unmuted. But otherwise, yeah, it's usually what they.
I understand it's completely voluntary, but like it's very clear when you turn a speaker card that that's what you're doing.
Correct.
A lot of times the stuff on the bottom, they're using a spouse's Zoom, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
I've
that-
seen that before, or a
right.
phone number, and it's.
Right. So we don't need to cover it now. Just it was a little heads up that
We
I
can
find
try to see if there's a way to.
some sort of
we could ask
mechanism
for
would be
their name,
valuable.
or if they want to give it.
right.
Yeah. I think you used to do that. All right, good.
Yeah,
point.
just because it's
Yeah.
very helpful when I want to follow up with somebody and speak with them further. I find that very helpful if we can not lose it with Zoom. Thanks.
If you want to follow up, having them identify with the phone
So-
number is perfect.
I would move us to 11.13, teleconferencing. That whole section needs updating. It's just not at all current, so. And there's even a reference, so I think all references to AB 2449 are now moved. So anyway, all that you guys can update as appropriate. I then have a few items on a list that I didn't see. Oh, yeah, go ahead. 11:13.
Yeah. When are we going to actually take up how we're going to implement 707? Because my initial reading is that if we wanted to just have a phone line and a speaker phone, we could do it that way.
Yeah, we have to allow the remote participation through.
It can be by a phone line, though. It can be teleconference. There are, and I'm not saying that we should. I'm not making an argument about what we should do about 707. I am pointing out that I think there are very permissive to very restrictive potential ways of implementing 707, and that we may want to have a study session on it.
Yes, and you can also restrict, it's like the regular Brown Act if you don't want the council, even under the traditional Brown Act, if you didn't want remote or call-in participation, you could say no one calls in on vacation or no one uses it. So, yeah, we could have a study session.
Okay, well, we'll see. I mean, yeah, yes, okay.
I bring it up only as it pertains to this particular section that we're going to write here about teleconferencing,
Right.
because we kind of need those answers before we write that section.
Yes, we do. That's what was hoping that they would take into account. And we'll get another bite at this because they're going to miraculously turn this into a coherent and cohesive document reflecting the discussion this evening. Wake up, Mr. Maginot.
He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, no, he's already way ahead of us. I can tell.
I hope you got the transcript feature on.
Yeah, okay. So I just have a couple things that I didn't see there. I don't know if anyone else, it seems like you might have a running list as well, Vice Mayor?
I gave voice to the one that I
You
cared
gave
about,
voice,
so.
okay. So, and I have one of the same ones, which is council packets and other materials will be delivered electronically. And or if there are some requests for like some definitive documents, not the packet per se, but we want the budget book, or we want, that be left for all council members on the dais. So there not be, gigantic paper packets printed out or
I'm fine.
delivered.
I'm fine with whatever, so long as it's left to the discretion of the staff. If staff decides
Yes.
they would like to deliver something to us in paper, I would be willing to accept it. But I think the policy is electronic. I really don't like getting paper.
Yeah.
Right? I don't keep it. I don't want it around the house. I don't keep it. So no paper,
I'm with
please.
you. Yes, council member.
I think we need a statement in there that says reasonable accommodations for disabilities and so forth will be
Absolutely.
made.
Somebody says, my eyes hurt from the radiation from a screen. I can only read it if it's printed on paper. I don't see how you can avoid that.
Right, well, and so I have that one on the list too. So we need ADA compliance. And so if someone has that need, that is absolutely fine. But there has to be.
How about we separate the two things? How about we say it's all done electronically, and then elsewhere we say none of these norms are meant to override ADA compliance for reason. So we don't signal that all you have to do is say my eyes hurt and you get a printed packet. Right? Like,
I like that, and actually, in what I say, and there should be a documentation process through HR for all, and I had to avail myself of ADA a year or so ago, and so there should be, again, staff can tell us the proper way to do this, but I agree, packets are electronic. not to preclude anybody from, with their needs, to going through and making sure HR is able to document the accommodations that we need to make. I mean, I'm still sitting with a back pillow here and such like because of the accommodations. Thank you very much. I also had, have we answered that one? Oh, and that is my running list that we haven't already talked about.
I have one more.
Yeah.
Can we adopt a norm that says you may not pass when you are being asked to vote? Maybe it'll lead to more abstentions, I don't know. But we have had a council member in the past who wanted to see what other council members, what positions they were taking. So they would pass and ask to have the vote come back to them. I think when the mayor calls the vote and the city clerk calls your name, yay, nay, or abstain, not pass, let me see what everyone else does.
Well, which actually brings up an interesting point, because one of the agencies that I serve on, representing Los Altos, has gone to a randomized voting. And so, that's
You
another.
don't know if you're voting yes or no?
A randomized.
The magic 8-ball
order.
says.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you know what I meant. Randomized names of calling the vote. So we always know where you're coming. But so I guess what we're saying is.
I mean, I like electronic voting. Everybody votes
Yes.
simultaneously. But there are circumstances
system.
where that can't happen.
Yes.
I think if when Melissa calls your name, you vote. You don't
Yes.
say pass. Let me see what everyone else did.
I think that's okay so long as there's some way of randomizing it.
Why are they connected?
Because because we just said earlier that seating we can no longer do by vote, so we're going to be voting about, right? And it starts being like a card game, right? Like, in other words, everybody but you and me, like assuming that I go second to last and you go last, everybody else, it's going to be up to debate where they sit. And right now, she does it in a certain order.
Oh, you're talking about seating, SEATING?
Seating, like so. Right now,
We thought you were talking about seeding,
Yeah.
CED.
No, what I'm talking about,
I
my
thought he was talking about seeds, like who's the highest seed in the tournament.
it could be that too.
You are.
Oh, the punchiness has set in.
Oh, yeah, it has. It has.
Yeah. I don't care very much. No.
Yeah. All right. One shall vote when one is called upon. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. I mean, there may be a reason if you're having a sneezing fit or something, come back to me, but whatever. Okay. All right. I think we've, any last things? I think we've come way beyond.
The clerk should just say no and just be quiet and sit there and wait.
We'll all wait. We'll all wait. Okay. All right. So we've given you a whole chunk of stuff. We look forward to seeing it again, and I appreciate everyone's forbearance on that. And so that was all of our discussion items. And as per our norms, informational items, we do not discuss those. They are in the packet. There were a number of informational items today. So moving to future agenda items and update on, actually, sorry, I'm probably shuffling right into my microphone, but I'm looking for my notes because I do have,
Mayor?
yes.
So 9 is just an information item? Is that right? Update on the Los Altos Chamber of
That
Commerce?
is correct, but it leads to a future agenda item I was going to suggest.
I was just
But
curious because I do
yeah.
see a member of the board sitting in the audience, so I thought
Right,
maybe you had the
it's-
expectation we were going to be doing something.
Yeah, it is just, golly, I don't know where my notes went, which is a problem. So maybe I'll move to my colleagues first in case you have an update while I find my notes, because I have things I need to say.
Thank you, Mayor. I have both an update and a proposed future agenda item. The Youth Commission, which may not be a commission much longer, is doing something very different than it has done in the past. And this is Melissa's idea, and I think that it's a great idea. The Youth Commission is a little bit more educational than it has been. And we've now moved to a phase where the Youth Commission is preparing to do a mock city council meeting. So they have elected their own mayor, their vice mayor, their city manager, their police chief. And it's going to be in May.
Correct, it will be the first Monday in May.
Okay. To the extent that you are able, I would like to request that all council members come and participate. I think it'll be a hoot. I think that the youth commissioners will really appreciate it. You know, the youth commissioners, they're very, very smart people. Most of you have been on the selection committee with me in the past. But they don't always gel real well. At the last meeting, Saskia was the department head who spoke to them, and it took place in this room. So they were sitting up here and over there, and they really started to come alive. So I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be special. And again, I think that they would really appreciate it, and that we would all enjoy it. You would enjoy it if you came out for that. So hopefully Melissa will keep us updated when that's going to
That's
happen.
Monday, May 4th?
Yes, and
In
we
the
will.
evening?
It will be in the evening, and
Okay.
we are creating invitations that will be going out to the city council in April and to the parents of the youth commissioners and the
Excellent.
public. They are invited to attend because we would like people to come and do public comment for them.
That's Star Wars Day. Is there going to be a Star Wars theme?
Well, we can make one. Maybe that will be an agenda item. I don't know.
I think if they were to do some mimicry or whatever, it would be hilarious.
For a future agenda item, I would like to agendize the council forming a task force, but it would be a fun task force. Los Altos is going to turn 75 in December of 2027. I would like us to put together a task force to start looking into how we can honor and celebrate that. And I'm proposing a task force because I think we're going to want to have city input and resources for the celebration. But I think it would be really useful to bring in maybe the History Museum. I mean, there are different civic organizations. I'd like to hear from people who are involved in the city. What are their ideas?
Wait, I'm going to institute a norm we talked about, which is not getting into discussion of the proposed future agenda item.
All right. Well, I hope I communicated what it was that I hope the
Yes.
task force could do.
Yes.
I'm supportive.
All right. So we would bring forward, and I'll support bringing forward an ask of council to do a task force. Yes, to authorize a task force. All right. Great. You want to?
I just wanted to talk about the Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation Changemakers Summit, particularly because we invested taxpayer money in that, and I thought we got a great return. It was really a great day. The format was very organized. They had it set up so that there were different tables with different topics, making budgets, making strategic plans, how to interact with electeds. And I felt that people really got a lot out of it. It came away energized, and I applaud the group and everyone who participated for a job well done, and I hope they do something similar again.
So I have something to report and also something to ask for on a future agenda item. The report, unfortunately, comes from the Water Commission, which is one of the outside boards that I sit on. And we just approved the 2050 forecast, and our water rates are going to go up by 10% per year because of the demand. And that's really a function of the cost of the infrastructure. And the only way to avoid that is to use less water. So I would like ultimately to, maybe move this to the EC's work plan, but I would like the city council to take up consideration of both forcing measures and incentives that we might use to reduce our water consumption. And, there's a variety of measures that could be involved, maybe involving recapture of runoff and things like that. Obviously it's too complex. The Environmental Commission will have to deal with it, but I would like us to take up whether or not we task them with that.
So are you proposing we have an agenda item to talk about whether we task? Or
Yes.
can we, or is that something that we can discuss at the meeting with them?
Well, I suppose there's different ways to go about it, but I am looking for council to make a statement about this, to actually pass a resolution and move it to the Environmental Commission and say, it's important to conserve. Water rates are going to go up 10% per year for the next, 2.5 decades if we don't do that.
Well, the rates are, okay, so we have a proposal from a future agenda, for a future agenda item. Do we have support?
I feel guilty about having this tumbler of water now. I'm not quite sure what you're asking for, but it's clear enough to me that I'll support it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I have big questions, but that's why we have agenda items, so.
Okay, so maybe you can work with the city manager and figure out what the ask is, because I don't think the ask should be to take it to the Environmental Commission. The ask should be to clarify what we're going to talk about, and then we decide where it goes.
Right.
Yeah,
We
okay.
may decide that it goes in the circular file.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Okay.
We're just taking up the issue and determining whether or not we need to do more for conservation.
Yeah, okay.
Of water.
So, all right, so you guys, you can work with the city manager to firm up that future agenda item.
And it may well tie into Mowendo.
Okay, so I've got a future agenda item. I would like to propose that we have a discussion involving the Chamber of Commerce to look at our contracts and agreements and our interaction and determine how we feel that has been met or not met, because I think there's been a lot of moving parts in that area. So do I have any support for a future agenda item concerning the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Update on some activities. So there's actually a press release coming out tomorrow, and from Silicon Valley Clean Energy, Mayor Larry Klein is this year's chair, and I am this year's vice chair on SVC. I also had the opportunity to meet with the Los Altos Mountain View Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Group, and one of whom sits on our Youth Commission, soon to be committee or something, or academy, and very motivated and interesting group. Great discussion with them. The vice mayor already mentioned the Community Foundation Summit, which was very good, as he said. So I attended part of that. And he and I also both attended the 2026 Peninsula Division Legislator Spotlight, which was hosted by El Camino Healthcare at their offices. So that's my updates. And so we've done that. I'm going to do now adjourn in honor. Oh.
This is more a question, which is, I had a sense of the discussion this evening that there's still a lot of confusion about SBS 707 implementation. So I'm assuming that we're going to see some interactions about that before there's a consent item implementing a plan. Right? Right. There's just too many questions for it to go straight from like this to some consent item. So is that true?
Well, it's an informational item tonight, and we're not discussing it.
We're not discussing it. But my point is,
Oh.
informational is clearly not enough for me with this item, but it's not like it's news. So I'm assuming that staff has a plan for what's going on with this, and I don't want to second guess the plan. I was just double checking that there is a plan being formulated.
I have a chart about traditional Brown Act 2449 and now 707, so you can see how, but that's just cause, and then how the ADA fits in. That's just for that, but then we do have to.
So I'm going to remind you of what you usually remind us. We're not going to discuss the topic, but so you are going to bring back what, a consent or another informational item or a study session or?
Yeah, a study session would suit me, right? I mean,
Are you asking for the policies that were made?
No, so here's my concern, or the reason I brought this up to clarify, right? Is I think there's a set of things that we have to do to comply, and of course we comply with state law. We're going to do those, but then there's a whole bunch of other things, which is so who's going to sit with their finger on the button if things go out of control? What is the signal to do that, right? How do we collect the names from people who want to give us their names, right? So I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that go into not just complying with the law, but actually making it productive that I would like to discuss. Several questions came up this evening that we don't have an answer to, and we need to have some answer to those before we start implementing this whenever we implement it.
I don't want to micromanage.
Agreed, but we're the ones who are going to have to interact with. I don't want to tell how to do it, but I think it was a legit example, right? Which is how do we get the names of the people who are interacting with that, right? That's a legit example that I don't care how, right? They can send you a text message. There's all sorts of ways we can do it. I don't want to tell you how to do it. I'm saying as a council member, it is valuable to me to have some mechanism for getting the names of people who comment into the minutes so that I can follow up with them. I would like to know what the parallel structure for that is going to be in the new method, as an example, right? So my point is that's not about compliance. That's about using this tool that we're now mandated to use in as productive a way as possible. And I'm just trying to figure out, there's a lot of emphasis on compliance, not a lot of emphasis on how we get what we need out of the tool. That's my point.
Okay, so city manager, I can work with you and city attorney, city clerk, and figure out what comes forward and how. Okay. All right.
No, you were saying.
Now, I was saying, I want to adjourn this meeting in honor of Dick Henning. He passed away on February 4th. He was a founder and leader for 50 years of the Foothill College Celebrity Forum. Our community has been blessed by Dick's exemplary service and commitment to our community over the decades. This meeting is adjourned.